Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto and his sister are neglected and leaves Konoha part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. 6 years after the Kyuubi attack. In a country known as the Land of Fire laid a village. It was not just any village, but a village full of ninja known as shinobi and kunoichi. This village was known as the village hidden in the leaves or konoha, which most people knew it. This village was considered the biggest and most powerful, largest, and most prosperous in all the elemental nations. The village was known for its stern teaching and the belief in that teamwork is everything. But our story doesn't start there. No, our story begins with a happy well-known family, or so that is what it seems. Within this family was 4 members and the children, 1 boy and 1 girl both, but this story was about the certain individuals that the family contains. The father of this seemingly happy family was the leader of this village, who was the Yondaime Hokage, and his name is Minato Namikaze, who had earned the nickname the Yellow Flash due to his speed. He was a man who had bright, blue eyes and spiky blonde hair. Minato also had jaw-length bangs framing either side of his face. According to his teacher Jiraiya, Minato was considered to be very handsome. The mother of this family was a beautiful woman, and her name was Kushina Namikaze, and was a kunoichi that was feared throughout the village due to her very short temper. Due to this, she had earned her the nickname the Red Devil because of the way that her vibrant and unique red hair stood whenever she was angry. She had a slender but feminine build, fair skin, violet eyes, fiery red hair, a common trait among the members of the Uzumaki clan, that fell down to her waist with strands that framed both sides of her face, and a black clip that parts her hair to the left, keeping it out of her eyes. The 2 kids were both 6 years old and both female. One of the girls had the red hair that her mother possessed and blue eyes. Her name was Narumi. The twin of the girl had blonde hair just like her father, but had violet-colored eyes, and her name was Naruto. The story doesn't revolve around these children either. No, it was about a boy and his twin sister, and they were both 8 years old. The boy was named Naruto, and you could tell he would be handsome and a heartbreaker and had a slim figure that had no amount of baby fat on it. All that you could see was the few small outlines of the tiny but compact muscles he contained. He had short blonde hair with a red bang covering his left. Girl was very much like her brother. She was beautiful girl and would become more every day. Her name was Kasumi. She had a small petite frame which was also showed no sign of baby fat and slight muscle like her brother. She also had short blonde hair with a red bang that covered her right eye. Both of the children's eyes were the same, as with azure blue on the outside and violet on the inside of the iris. These were the forgotten children of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Namikaze, and their names were Naruto and Kasumi. These 2 children showed a cold and crude personality to almost everyone in Konoha, except to each other, where they would show the most beautiful smiles people have ever seen. Right now we find the boy and his sister looking outside their window from the 2-story house, with the brother hugging his sister with their fingers interlocked, a way of comforting each other, watching as their parents training their younger sisters. They always asked their parents for training, but usually got brushed off for their sisters. Why, you may ask yourself? Because 6 years ago a masked man attacked their mother as she was giving birth to their sibling outside of the village. The masked man was able to successfully remove the 9 tails from their mother and set it on a rampage that started to destroy the village. Minato was able to take the 9 tails to a secluded part outside of the village, and with the help of Kushina, they were not only able to beat the man by sealing his chakra for a small amount of time. After the man had been drive away, they had been able to divide and seal the 9 tails chakra into the newborn girls and the soul back into Kushina, making her stable enough to survive. Due to having it ripped out of her, it had destroyed most of her chakra network, ending her career as a kunoichi. Narumi and Naruto were then presented to the village by their parents, saying that they are the jailers and shall protect the village from harm, thus making them become worshipped by the villagers as heroes. The problem with this is that the eldest siblings were outcasts in their village, as well as family becoming shunned for their sisters. Everyone all but forgot that the Hokage had 2 older children. The brother and sister grew up in the shadows of their younger sisters. They were always forgotten in family activities such as vacations, parties, dinners, and even their own birthdays. The parents merely thought of them as pests, and they were finally going to try one last time to gain recognition before giving up on them. We can now find the Naruto and Kasumi going through the Namikaze family library. That will certainly get them noticed inside their own home. Kasumi-chan, have you found anything yet? I'm getting really bored looking for junk. Asked Naruto, that was pilled under scrolls and trying to get up from underneath them, but failing miserably. I know I haven't yet. Now get up from under the pile of scrolls and be helpful please. Kasumi told her brother, and throwing a random scroll at her brother, which comically hit him in the head, causing him to perform a face plant. While Kasumi was giggling at him, Naruto then opened up the scroll she had thrown at him, labeled Chakra Control Practice, and started reading said scroll. Kasumi-chan, I found something. It shows detailed descriptions of how climb trees and walk on water. Told a giddy Naruto while his sister was in the same state as him. Then let's get going. We can go to our favorite spot because it will be perfect place to train in this stuff. Kasumi wisely told Naruto, who only nodded in agreement to busy reading the scroll. She then grabbed his hand and interlocked their fingers before both of them started running to the spot. At the secret spot. Naruto and Kasumi arrived to the secret place that they were both thinking about. It was a lush green opening in the middle of the forest. It contained a small lake that had crystal clear water. Around the lake you could see vibrant and beautiful plants, along with animals running in the clearing or sleeping on the grass. When the duo arrived, the animals all looked at them before going back to the activities they were conducting, knowing that the two visitors wouldn't hurt them. Okay, so it says to accomplish tree running, we will have to add chakra to our feet and get the correct amount or else it won't work. Naruto informed the two of them while looking at a 15-foot tall tree. 3, 2, 1 go. Both yelled at the same time, and when they reached the tree they both had different reactions. Naruto hadn't added enough chakra to his feet, causing him to slip and fall onto his back. Kasumi had the opposite reaction and added too much chakra, resulting in her launching off the tree, landing on her brother. The two of them then for the next 2 hours spent all the time climbing up the tree and getting it perfect. They then started learning the water walking technique, which resulted in them gaining drenched clothes after learning and perfecting it after 5 hours. We finally did it, sis, now we can show them we're not useless, Naruto told his sister while rubbing her head that was in his lap resting. Kasumi merely nodded before forcing herself up and grabbing her brother's hand, interlocking their fingers as always, before they both starting heading home with smiles on their faces, ready to show their parents what they learned. What they never saw were two beautiful women in the tree watching the two run off into the distance. One of them had snow white hair, while the other possessed pitch black hair. Such loving smiles, it always surprises me that they can even show that expression anymore due to the lives they lived, spoke the white-haired woman that was sporting a smile on her face that was showing love and longing towards the two children that left. Don't worry sis, they will soon be out children and they will never be sad again, but it is funny they act like lovers, never leaving each other's side and walking holding hands. I wouldn't be surprised if something happened between the two of them in the near future. Spoke the black-haired woman to her counterpart while also giggling into her hand. The white-head merely shook her head but nodded at the same time. With that the two women turned around and faded into nothing as though they were a figment of someone's imagination. At the Namika's household. Naruto and Kasumi arrived at their home and went searching for their parents. They found them sitting in the shade eating lunch without them. They were used to this, but it still slightly hurt nonetheless. The duo made it over next to the family and talking their time to not startle them and get in trouble. "Oh no, mom and dad, Kasumi and I would like to show you something we have been working on all day." Naruto told the parents, who sighed at just wanting to eat lunch but nodded and waved at them to begin. When Naruto and Kasumi started walking on the water and walking on trees, the parents were experiencing shock and anger at the same time, while Naruko and Narumi in surprised that their big bro and sis did something that they couldn't yet. "Slap slap, who taught you how to do these things?" yelled Minato and his wife that just smacked the kids, who were now in shock on the floor. They were rubbing the red marks on their faces that were very likely to become bruises because of the bluish coloring. We just went into the family library and took a scroll and taught ourselves. Who spoke a shocked and angry Naruto due to him and his sister being hit for no apparent reason. "And who told you to take something? Go to your room and don't come out." Kushina yelled and tried to hit the kids again. Though when she did, something interesting happened. When the slap hit Naruto's skin, it instead felt like she hit a steel wall and it stung her hand. They looked at their children and got slightly freaked out because they could have sworn Naruto and Kasumi's eyes changed for a split second. The pupils of their eyes turned blood red and the sclera turned pitch black and the soon-to-be bruises on their faces disappeared in a second. If they would have looked closely, they could have seen something trying to come out of the back of their shirts. Though these changed were only for a split second and they only thought it to be their imagination. Naruto and Kasumi then gave their parents an ice-cold glare that they gave everyone else in the village, making both Kushina and Minato flinch in shock from looking into their eyes. The twins' faces then changed into an emotionless mask and the tone they spoke in sounded dead. "Very well, Hokage-sama and Namikaze-sama, we will now leave to our room for interrupting your lunch," spoke Naruto in a tone that didn't have an ounce of emotion. The parents then adopted downhearted expressions on their faces for not being called mother or father. All the while Naruto and Natsumi kept quiet through the whole ordeal, not knowing what to do in this situation. Naruto and Kasumi then swiftly left, both shaking with rage, while Kasumi just grabbed her brother's hand into hers to calm the both of them down. When they arrived at their room, they opened the door only to be bathed in a bright white light, making both of them flash away, while the door softly closed itself. An unknown location. The twins opened their eyes after the bright white light blinded the both of them. They looked around to find out where they were, but all they saw was nothing. They then both tensed when they saw two people start to form in front of them. They both then gawked when they saw the beautiful appearances of the women that stood before them. Then women just merely giggled at their silly looking faces. "Don't fret little children, we aren't here children, we aren't going to hurt you, quite opposite actually," the black-haired woman said, resulting in the twins relaxing. "Now that we go that out of the way, would you like to know who we are?" the white-haired woman asked. The twins nodded and they got the answer of their lives. "I'm Kami and this is my sister, the goddess of death," she spoke as it was the most normal thing in the world. Naruto and Kasumi's eyes widened to the eyes of dinner plates and comically fainted next to each other. "Don't you think that was a little blunt?" asked the now-known goddess of death with a sweat drop on her head, looking towards her sister. "Maybe," Kami replied, rubbing the back of her head with an embarrassed face. Once the twins woke up again, they then immediately looked at their feet with downcast expressions. They then asked a question that instantly broke the two goddesses' hearts. "Why would you want to see us? We are just nobodies." The two kids were then hugged by the two women and started to shake before crying into their shoulders. "You two are the most precious things in this world and were given a crappy hand," Kami spoke while rubbing Kasumi's head. "And we have a question that we would like to ask the both of you," the Shinigami spoke and sitting down with Naruto in her lap. The two children looked up towards the two women, wondering what their question was going to be. "Would you two like to become our children?" asked the two goddesses at the same time with a sliver of hope in their voices. Naruto and Kasumi immediately looked at the two women while having more tears collect in their eyes. They both looked at each other and smiled before hugging the women tighter. "We would love to," the twins said at the exact same time. Both women gained huge smiles on their faces, placed kisses on the twins' heads. They then got up and straightened their clothes out. "If that's the case, then we can't have our children in a village that doesn't want them," stated Kami, or newly named Kachan, by her kids. Gaining a yes from everyone next to her. "Then once we leave we can unlock your hidden power that was trying to escape earlier this afternoon during the fight with your former parents," the Shinigami stated, or newly named Kasan, by her new kids. While she stated this, they were just staring at her with faces full of curiosity. "What do you mean, Kasan? What tried to come out earlier this afternoon?" Naruto questioned while his sister just nodded next to him. Now kids, let's leave the village and then we will explain everything," Kami told them, who just nodded, knowing they will be told later in the night. "Now that we have that out of the way, we should leave as soon as possible. Do you kids know when you can be ready?" questioned the Shinigami. Naruto and Kasumi both talked to each other before turning and facing their new mothers. "We can honestly leave tonight, we don't really have a lot of things, just a small amount of clothes," responded Kasumi while Naruto agreed. The two women frowned after learning this, but it did make it easier for them to leave the village as soon as possible and start training them to become stronger and learning their dormant abilities. With that said, the twins and women teleported back into the plain-looking room that was Naruto and Kasumi's and started getting ready for tonight. Nighttime in Konoha. They were finally ready, they were going to finally leave, and they were more than eager to leave. Naruto and Kasumi both looked around their room again to make sure they got everything they needed. They turned to their mother and nodded. "You guys finally ready?" Kami asked the two children. "Yes, Kachan, we got all our clothes packed and we, with your guys' help earlier, we copied every single thing in the family library," Kasumi responded, then looked to her brother that had a thoughtful expression on his face. "Is something bothering you, bro?" "No, I'm just wondering when they will notice we left. I wish I could have been able to see their faces," Naruto responded his sister and hugged her while both of them giggled at the thought. With everything done, the goddesses both grabbed their children's shoulders and teleported them into the cave to master their abilities. But them gone, the leaf just lost, the centipede and the one-eyed owl, names that would later strike fear into anyone who heard it. 2 hours later. The two younger siblings Naruto and Natsumi were talking with each other, trying to think of ways to make it up their elder siblings for what happened earlier that day. "Maybe we can get mom to cook them any food they want, does that sound good?" Naruto asked her sister, who just shook her head side to side negatively. "No, I'm pretty sure they can already cook without our help just fine. I know, what about we show them how to do the stuff mom and dad taught us?" Kasumi said while Naruto nodded and both went to their brother and sister's room. As they were walking, they were surprised to see how far Naruto and Kasumi's room was from everyone else's. They finally arrived at the room after a quick argument on who would knock, resulting in Natsumi losing and having to do it. Knock knock, no answer. "Do you think that they are asleep?" "No, they are probably still mad at us and don't want to talk." But that said, the twins knocked one more time and opened the door into the elder sibling's room. They were surprised that there was nobody inside and got worried. After looking around, they found a letter with containing one simple word. "Goodbye." After reading the one powerful word, both of the girls screamed. Minutes earlier with Minato and Kushina. Minato and Kushina were getting ready for bed, unaware of what had happened earlier that night. Minato was washing his face and Kushina was brushing her hair. "Sai Minato, do you think that we were too hard on Naruto and Kasumi earlier?" questioned Kushina, who stopped straightening her hair and was now staring off into space. Minato then came up behind her and simply hugged her. "I think that we did go a little overboard, but we were just scared that they could have gotten hurt trying to do those things." Minato replied to his wife, who relaxed into his arms. "Tell you what. Tomorrow morning when they wake up we will apologize and we can do anything they want." Kushina just nodded at her husband's plan and was just about to go to bed before they both heard ear-splitting screams on the other side of the house. They ran as fast as they could and were surprised that they arrived to the boring room of Naruto and Kasumi. They then saw their youngest children on the floor crying, holding a piece of paper. Minato read the paper out loud next to his wife and both gained horrified expressions. He then went straight to the Hokage Tower to immediately start looking for the runaway twins. Too bad they would never find them or hear from them again for the next couple of years. With Naruto and Kasumi. After their departure, we can now find the new family forming out of thin air into an opening in a forest. Looking around, Naruto and Kasumi first noticed that there was a small cave right behind where they were standing. "Ah-chan, where are we exactly? I thought we were going to be going somewhere to train in our dormant power like you said earlier." Naruto questioned his mother, still looking around at the place they arrived. "We are going to, my child, we just need to go into this cave to train." Kami responded to her son, who looked at her confused. "How are we all going to fit in there, let alone train in that tiny cave?" Kasumi also questioned, looking towards her mother, who just smiled mysteriously. "Can you tell us, Kasan?" They directed towards their other mother standing on the sidelines watching everyone interact. All the female Shinigami did was smile and walk past her children while motioning them to follow her with a simple hand, just as Kami walked next to her. They then started walking through the cave. You could easily tell how old it was by simple observation. It contained multiple stalactites with water dripping of them while hanging off the ceiling, looking like they would impale you. The atmosphere inside the cave was a little creepy and quiet, with only the sound of their feet hitting the floor. It didn't help that I was hot and humid inside the cave. When they arrived at the end of the tunnel, they saw that it was a dead end. Naruto and Kasumi then looked at their mothers confused. Seeing their confusion, Kami then simple waved her hand at the wall and it started cracking before completely falling apart, showing it had a bright light behind it. They then walked forward while holding their hands in front of their eyes before getting used to the light and removing them. What they saw amazed them. It was a simple valley that was full of lush wildlife. They could also see that it contained a massive waterfall that was sparkling from the light's shine. Naruto and Kasumi ran over to the water and looked down and could see their reflections perfectly in the crystal clear water. As they were doing, they noticed a different assortment of animals that it contained, ranging from foxes, turtles, rabbits, exotic birds along with other unique animals. After they were done admiring everything, their mother called them over to talk. "This place will be our training ground for a long time, so you should get used to it, but I think that you two will be just fine," the Shinigami stated as the twins nodded in agreement. "Now this place is unique and versatile in multiple ways. We can change the weather, time of day, as well as the mold of the landscape anywhere we choose. Another thing is that the time difference is not the same in here as it is outside. The equivalent of a year in here is half a year outside, due to us being in this pocket dimension we made many years ago. This also causes you to age at half the rate than a normal person while in here. So we could be in here for 10 years training, but will only age 5 years," Kami told the children, who only nodded, trying to understand what they were just told. "Ah-chan, can you tell us what this dormant power is that we are going to be on now?" asked Naruto. "What is it and what does it do?" inputted Kasumi, who also was wondering. In turn, Kami and the Shinigami gained semi-serious expressions. "Okay, but before we tell you, did you feel anything earlier today when Kushina tried to hit you again?" the Shinigami asked the two children, who gained thoughtful expressions, thinking on what happened earlier that day. After a couple of minutes of thinking, the twins turned back to the mothers, thinking they had the answer to their question but were still unsure at the same time. "Well, for one, my eyes felt really uncomfortable and I really just wanted to rub them to make the feeling go away. Then I felt a stinging sensation in my lower back that felt like needles were trying to come out of my skin. Other than that, when our former mother struck me, I didn't feel any pain," Naruto answered to his mothers. They then looked towards Kasumi for her answer. "Well, mine was the same way. My eyes felt uncomfortable. Then I felt a burning feeling on the upper part of my back. Then when Naruto was hit by Kushina, I got really mad and felt the both sensations increase," Kasumi responded, and the two women then nodded their heads, happy they got the answers they wanted. "Yes, you two are correct. That is exactly what we are talking about and the reason we came to this certain place. In this place we can train you in your abilities and not worry about anyone interfering. Now the only problem is making the abilities, and we are going to have to force it out, and it is going to be the worst feelings you will ever felt. Do you two still want to continue with this?" Kami asked her children, a little worried. Naruto and Kasumi looked at each other. After a while they gained a fire in their eyes. They then walked over to their mothers and nodded confidently, looking at them straight in the eyes. Okay, we will now begin the process, please sit down and we will proceed. The Shinigami spoke and the children immediately sat down next to each other. The two goddesses put their hands on both of the kids' heads and started injecting them with their own powers, making their skin glow with power. Naruto and Kasumi then started to scream out in pain that felt like their whole body was being ripped apart from the inside out. Their bodies then began to get covered by a black aura that surrounded them, darkening them out until they were no longer visible. The ground slowly started to crack, making a spiderweb pattern around them as they made their own personal craters. After about 10 minutes of this, the black aura vanished, leaving the two children in craters both 2 feet deep, passed out from the pain they just received. Well, now since that part is out of the way, we just have to wait for them to wake up. Kami sighed to her sister, who nodded, keeping quiet. They then formed a king-sized bed from the matter around them, slowly putting Naruto and Kasumi onto said bed. I wonder what they will think of their new appearances, the Shinigami said while giggling into her hand. Next to her side, Kami simply shook her head, changed the time of day till it was nighttime, and made a bed for herself with her sister following soon after, and let sleep take them. In Naruto's mindscape. Naruto slowly woke up, opening his eyes and looking around an unfamiliar place. It looked like a sewer, one of which looked dirty with stains on the walls and water covering the floor. He looked up and saw pipes here, one of them seemed to be flowing with a pitch black liquid while the other took a dark red color, and both of the pipes were dripping their respective colors. He started walking in this unfamiliar territory, just following the pipes. After a couple of minutes of walking, he arrived at an opening of a huge opening in the wall. Throwing caution aside, he shrugged and walked through the door, and there he saw a middle-aged man. The man had a light complexion with blood-red hair that went down to his shoulders and eyes that were just as red as his hair, but the pupils were slitted. They looked at each other, Naruto with a look of question and the man with an observing look. Who are you and where are we exactly? Naruto questioned the man, who stared a little longer. Interesting, you don't seem scared. I wonder if I can change that. The man told himself, but Naruto heard him loud and clear. Naruto gained a confused look, and then before his very eyes that widened, the man changed. There was a huge cloud of smoke, and when it cleared there stood a beast that was meant to be feared. It was a humongous fox with 9 tails swishing behind it. You're not afraid to be in front of the presence of me? Questioned the Kyuubi, who was genuinely surprised that the child before him was not trembling in fear. If I can meet Kami and the Shinigami, then I'm sure that I can stand meeting the Kyuubi no Yoko. Spoke Naruto with honesty that made the fox howl with laughter. Ahaha, I like you, kid. You are nothing like your bastard of a mother. The Kyuubi once again spoke, who suddenly noticed the dark expression the child took when he said her name. Please, I would not like to be reminded that she is my mother. I have a new family that I love dearly now. Spoke Naruto in a tone that left no room for arguments. Now that we got you are out of the way, can you now explain to me where we are, please, and how you got here exactly? Spoke Naruto towards the fox, who nodded. We are in your body, or more specific, you mind. As for the reason I am here, the night that I attacked Konoha, a man of the Uchiha clan with a spiral mask, put me under a Jinjutsu with those cursed eyes they hold. He ripped me put of your former mother and controlled me, making me attack Konoha against my free will. Spoke the massive fox that had a massive amount of anger in his eyes. He was then defeated by the Yondaime Hokage, and before my chakra was sealed into your younger siblings and my soul back into my previous container. I detached part of my soul and chakra from myself and left to find a suitable place to live, and behold, I found the offspring of the Yondaime's wife and I fused with you. Thus making me be able to speak with you as I am now. Explained the fox, who then gained an understanding nod from Naruto. I see, this makes a lot of sense now. Why Minato and Kushina left us and trained Naruto and Natsumi. It still doesn't make right what they made us go through. No child should have to endure the pain we did. Naruto spoke to the fox. They will never be able to use my chakra properly, added the fox, gaining a confused look from Naruto. Without the soul to go with the chakra, they will simply go out of control whenever they use it. But you're an exception. Due to you holding both a part of my soul and chakra, you can use it safely. Though you will only be able to go up to 3 tails at most. The Kyuubi explained to a Naruto, who nodded slightly giddy. So say if I was able to take the rest of the chakra from Kushina and my younger sisters without killing them, then I would be able to use your chakra at full blast. Questioned Naruto, looking at the fox with stars in his eyes. The fox only dumbly nodded with a sweat drop as his behavior. How are you going to be able to obtain the rest of me when it is a rule that if the Jinchuriki gets their Biju they die? The fox once again asked, confused how the child will pull off such an act. Are you kidding? I have 2 parents that are gods, it can't be hard to come up with something. Spoke Naruto in an obvious tone while the fox face palmed himself for forgetting such a huge detail. Of course, how could I forget such a simple thing? Anyways, kid, we can continue this conversation later. It is time for you to wake up. The Kyuubi said to Naruto, who nodded. Do you have a name? I'm pretty sure someone as cool as you must have a name. Asked Naruto to the fox, who nodded in confirmation. It's Kurama. That was the name I was bestowed when I was created long ago. The now named Kurama told Naruto, who smiled and faded, completely leaving his mindscape back into reality, leaving Kurama to himself as he laid down and fell asleep. The next morning. Naruto groaned awake, his whole body hurt and was sore from yesterday. He looked down and smiled as he saw Kasumi sleeping, cuddling up next to him with drool coming out from the side of her mouth. He then started run his fingers through her white and black hair, weight black and white. He then looked down again, her confirm what he saw, and she did indeed have white and black hair, gone was her blonde and red hair. Out of shock from seeing the new color of Kasumi's hair, he jumped off the bed into the lake that was right next to the bed. Due to the splash he made when he fell into it, he got Kasumi wet as well, startling her and waking her up rudely, and regretted moving so fast as her body hurt much like Naruto's. She was about to yell at Naruto if not for his new appearance that startled her. Much like Kasumi's, his hair turned snow white, and places like his bang covering his left eye that was once red was now black. The next thing was his eyes. They had changed, their eyes were now blood red and the sclera was pitch black. Naruto looked back at his sister that he got soaked with water and got a better look at her. Her hair also turned snow white and the bang covering her right eye was black. Her eyes were the exact same as his. LL, look at why yourself. They both said at the same time while stuttering and pointing at each other. They then both looked into the water, shocked by their new appearances, and yelled. Out of thin air their mothers appeared with worried faces until they saw their children looking at themselves in the water and gained an understanding look. They then walked up to the two frozen children and touched their shoulder, startling them, bringing them back into reality. It's okay, these changes were expected to happen, sorry we forgot to tell you, now calm down. Kami spoke to the children, who nodded shakily and relaxed, albeit slowly. After a couple of minutes they then sat down in the grass. Now that everyone is back to normal, time to explain now their inner powers, don't you think so, sis? The Shinigami asked her sister, who nodded. Yes, I believe so. Now listen, the both of you, because this might take a bit. Kami told, getting nods from her kids before speaking again. Long ago there used to be a civilization of people called ghouls. These people were very unique, this was both good and bad. The ghouls were people that only could eat a certain something which we will feed you after the story. I won't tell you what it is or else you won't eat it. Told Kami to the children, who nodded, wondering what the food contained. These people were easily superior to people. They were 4 to 7 times stronger than the standard person, have an extremely high healing rate. Another thing is their body was more resilient, making things difficult to penetrate their skin, such as knives when directed at them would break on contact. Another thing, they had a better sense of smell than the Inyazuka clan and Konoha. They had a unique weapon that came from their bodies called a kagyun. Told Kami, taking a breath and continuing. Due to this and their unique food supplies they needed to survive, they then started to go on killing sprees and committing massacres towards their own kind and the human population to gain power. Over time we had to intervene and kill them all, erase them from history, making sure no one ever knew of them again. But we did keep one family alive out of the hundreds we did erase from existence. It was a man and his wife who tried to avoid violence at all costs. Kami said, getting another breather, having her sister take over. These two people were the nicest people that you could ever meet, and they had a child. We allowed this child to live as long as he didn't start killing like his ancestors. Over time he grew up and met a woman of the Uzumaki clan. He soon married her and joined her clan. This child he had with the Uzumaki did not have the abilities he did, and over time we thought it had gone away, but here we are with you too, and you possess the abilities of your ancestors. The Shinigami spoke to the children, who nodded. Just then Naruto and Kasumi's stomachs rumbled, causing themselves to rub their head in embarrassment. So I guess now is the time for you guys to find out what your ancestors ate. Kami spoke and disappeared in a flash. Coming back a few minutes later with food in her hand, she placed it in front of the kids, who looked in disgust at it. All it was is meat that wasn't even cooked, it was still raw and had blood covering it. Then they caught the scent of the meat and it smelt like the best thing in the world, and with ravenous eyes, they devoured the food in a flash. When they were done they had blood covering their mouths, with some of it dripping off of their chins onto the floor. Ah-chan, what was that? Can I have more? Naruto asked. Ika-chan, I want a lot more as well please. Kasumi added in with her brother. Kami just sighed but nodded nonetheless. After a few more servings of the bloody mess they were finally stuffed. Now you need to keep a clear mind on what I have to tell you. It will disturb you, but that is fine. Are you ready to know what you guys just digested? The Shinigami spoke in a serious tone towards the children, who nodded cautiously, already having a bad feeling. You two just finished eating raw human flesh. It was the only food that ghouls could eat, or else they would get sick and slowly die if they didn't eat, and it was an extremely painful process. The Shinigami spoke slowly and carefully, watching the twins' expressions diligently. Naruto and Kasumi's hair then shadowed their eyes, and you could see tears coming from their eyes. They both instantly regretted eating the flesh and felt gross for eating it down like hungry animals. They immediately tried vomiting it out, but soon realized that their bodies wouldn't let them. They stopped and sat next to each other, and it was dead quiet in the surrounding area. "Does this mean that we are monsters?" asked Naruto while his voice cracked in sadness. "Why didn't you tell us what we were going to eat before we digested it? What person would love children who eat human flesh?" Kasumi asked her own question, not doing so well in the emotional department much like her brother. The goddesses then walked up to the two children and gave them a group hug while the kids cried into their shoulders. After the tears stopped, they then looked at their mothers expecting to see disgust and hate in their eyes, but instead they saw all the love in their eyes, just like the first day they met them. "We wouldn't be good parents if we just hated you. Just remember this, you two, we will always love you no matter what," the Shinigami said, hugging the kids closer, and everyone relaxed when she said this. After a few more minutes, everyone was on their feet feeling a lot better than earlier. Now in the past, ghouls could only eat human flesh to stay healthy and live. With us around though, in the initial transformation process yesterday we changed it so that you can eat regular human food, it just won't be good as human flesh. Kami told the children, who nodded and are still a little creeped out by the whole cannibalism thing. "Now I believe it's time for us to release your Kaguns, don't you think?" Kami spoke while the two children gained determined expressions. "Okay, now to release your Kaguns you have to concentrate on your backs until you feel the stinging sensation again, and since you already have your eyes activated, we don't have to worry about those," the Shinigami informed them. Naruto and Kasumi then got into meditative positions and started trying to get the feeling again. After a while they felt the sensations again and had to bit their lips to not whimper from the stinging sensation. After a couple of minutes the twins' Kaguns burst from their backs and through their clothes, ripping them. The goddesses were surprised because both of them had unique Kaguns, both different from each other. Kasumi's Kagun was wings that sprouted from her inner shoulder blades. That wasn't what surprised the goddesses. What surprised them was, instead of having 2 wings or less like most ghouls had in the past, she instead had 4 wings that were vermilion in color where they sprouted from her back, and they started turning purple at the tip of said wings. Naruto had 2 Kaguns in different spots. His first one was below his shoulder blades, and its appearance formed into a lance that was attached to a gun sword handle with a spiked pommel. It was constantly changing shape, going in between the lance and forming into a shield that had 3 parts jutting out of it on each side. It was all black and shined gold at certain places. If you want a better visual view, just look Iksa from Tokyo Ghoul Defensive Mode. His second Kagun was coming from his lower back around his waist, where he sprouted 8 tentacle-like appendages. The color was a mix of dark red and black. "That hurt more than I thought it would. It still stings slightly," Naruto stated with a wince while his lance stayed in his right hand and 8 tentacles swishing behind him. "Yeah, but at least the pain is going away slowly. We should be able to get used to it over time," Kasumi put in her own opinion while moving the muscles in her back so she could see and touch her wings. "Yes, the hard part is over. It's just the initial release of your Kaguns that hurt. After that you will barely even feel it," stated the Shinigami to the twins, who nodded thankfully at what she said. "Now we changed a few things with your blood that will make your life as ghouls easier to maintain," stated Kami to the twins, who were now listening her done observing the extra weapons they gained. "There is another stage to your Kaguns that is called a Kakuja. A Kakuja is the better form of a Kagun due to it mutating and enhancing your abilities tremendously. In the past, in order to obtain a Kakuja, you ghouls would have to cannibalize on other ghouls in order for their bodies to morph. We changed it so that you can eat regular human flesh and still be able to unlock this ability," the Shinigami told to the kids, who looked horrified at the thought of eating each other for power, but then got relieved that they can eat regular people to obtain it. "Next is that we made your physicals better. You are now 10 times stronger than the standard person. Your skin is also more durable, being able to break a sword in half if it touches you, and it can protect from shinobi jutsus until mid-B rank. Now another thing that we gave you is the ability to see people's chakra when you have your ghoul eyes activated. Now the deal with your hair is, since we interfered with the initial release process, the colors changed and became a mix of both of ours. Then finally you are no longer related to the Yondaime Hokage's family with your DNA changed," Kami told the children, who now understood, shaking their heads up and down happily with smiles, being told they were truly free of their previous family. "Now then, let's turn your eyes off along with your Kaguns for now. Just relax and they should go away naturally," the Shinigami told the children, who followed her instructions, and like she said, the extra retreated back into their bodies and their eyes went back to their azure and violet combo. "Now then, do you guys have any questions before we start your training?" the Shinigami asked. Earlier today when I woke up I found out I have some of the Kyuubi in my body," Naruto told bluntly, causing everyone to sweat drop. After going through the entire explanation of how Kurama was in his body, the goddesses gained thoughtful expressions. I'm sure we can find a way to remove the rest of the Kyuubi from the Namikaze safely, just might take a little thinking. With him in you Naruto you will have to train harder than before and hopefully he will be of use in your training as well. Kami told while everyone agreed. Now then crack, are you guys ready for your torture training? Crack, it's going to be a long couple of years for you guys, you better start running or else this is going to hurt more than it has to. The Shinigami spoke in a sing-song voice with a sadistic smile on her face while cracking her fingers. Naruto and Kasumi instantly started running when she said this and took off with their mothers flying behind shooting the different elements at them. Yup, it was going to be hell for Naruto and Kasumi, they knew this from the beginning, but they knew that they were going to become stronger through this, so it was all worth it. So far now they will withstand their mothers trying to injure them while having sadistic smiles on their faces. 4 years later in a valley. In a valley unknown to all, it was the perfect day for outdoor activities. The sun was shining brightly with a big puffy clouds in the sky that looked amazing to sleep on. The temperature was 85 degrees Fahrenheit with a cool and calm breeze was flowing throughout the valley. There were animals surrounding a waterfall that were drinking the crystal clear waters that it produced. It was definitely a peaceful day indeed. Well, that was how it was in one side of the valley. On the other side of the valley it was a wasteland. The trees were destroyed, ranging from having their roots removed from the earth or being split in various ways. The ground was littered with large and small craters, crystals that looked like feathers that you could tell were sharp just by looking at them, and slash marks everywhere ranging from deep to shallow. In the distance you could see two fast-moving blurs in the distance colliding, making sparks whenever they crossed paths. The two blurs kept crossing paths for a couple of more minutes, adding more damage to the already scarred land. The fighting stopped as two people were seen on opposite sides of the field slightly panting. They had cuts littering their bodies and blood dripping from the corner of their mouths. The first figure was a boy standing at a height of 4'8", he had short white hair with a black bang covering his left eye. His body was toned, forming what looked like the perfect swimmer body because how his muscles moved whenever he moved. His face was narrow, giving it a more serious look, but was still handsome. He had cuts on his body that were quickly regenerating along with his clothes that were mending back together when his wounds healed. His black and red eyes were closely observing his opponent for any weakness so he could use any advantage given. He had 4 black and red tentacles like appendages waving behind him and were aimed at his opponent threateningly. All the clothes he was wearing were completely black. He was wearing a black long-sleeve shirt that was made up of very strong materials that was sticking to his skin, allowing for high flexibility and stealth in the battlefield when at night or in dark areas. Over the long sleeve he was wearing a black shirt that went up to mid-neck, the shirt had metal plating in various places, such as his chest, ribs, and waist. He was also wearing pants made of the same materials as the long sleeve and was also sticking to his skin. Over the pants he was wearing black shorts and on his feet he was sporting black shoes with steel toes. The next figure was obviously a girl if her figure was anything to go by, and she stood at a height of 4'5" with short white hair and a black bang covering her right eye. She had a nice compact petite body for a 10-year-old, resembling her opponent's. She had a heart-shaped face with a cute little button nose. She was wearing the same exact clothing as the person she was facing. Behind her were 4 wings, all of which looked like fire with the colors vermilion and purple. These two people were Naruto and Kasumi, having their daily battle over the course that was quite normal when they lived in the valley for training. They were both staring each other intently with black and red eyes while panting lightly. They stayed there regaining their breath, not moving a muscle. A leaf then started to fall in between them, as if it was the signal. The two charged at each other again when then it touched the floor. Kasumi started off by hardening her wings and shooting several crystal feathers at her brother, who used his 4 tentacles to shield himself from the attacks. Kasumi, seeing that Naruto was on the defensive, charged at him and sharpened her wings to look like blades. Trying to break his defense, she attacked him with 2 swift strikes, but he deflected the attack easily. He then pushed her back and sent 3 fast strikes into her torso and set her away with her feet scraping the ground. With 3 of his 4 tentacles, Naruto pulled out some crystals in the ground around him and threw them at Kasumi. Seeing the shards coming at her, she wrapped her wings around herself and started spinning them, making it look like a mini colorful tornado was protecting her body. He saw that the shards shattered on contact, but Naruto planned on this and charged at his sister again. Getting close to her, he sent more punches in various places on her body, where she narrowly dodged them, but unable to avoid the roundhouse kick that sent her into the ground. Kasumi pushed herself off of the ground and had a little more blood oozing out from the corner of her mouth. She just simply smiled, she loved having these spars with her brother. Feeling that her wounds were healing at an alarming rate, got into her fighting stance once again. Charging at him again, Kasumi decided to use her Kagyun in a more defensive manner. Both of them arming their Kagyuns for battle, they met in a flurry of attacks. Careful to watch the tentacles behind her brother, she had to be careful for the feints and mocks her brother would normally use to throw her off balance, causing her to make a mistake where he would capitalize on it and it would be the end of her. Putting more strength into her wings, she smashed them against Naruto's Kagyun, where he had to use all 4 tentacles to protect himself from the strike. She then punched him twice in the face and then kneed him in the gut and kicked him away. Naruto slid across the ground and panted a little and looked at his sister with a grin. Running at his sister, Naruto planned that would have to use more wild strikes to catch her off guard. They met again in a flurry of punches. Kasumi tried to punch Naruto, to which he instead grabbed her arm and kneed her in the chest and then kicked her in the face, which sent her barreling towards the ground where a small dust cloud was seen when she impacted. When Naruto landed on the ground, his opponent jumped out of the dust cloud and tried to strike him with her Kagyun, but he blocked it with his own and jumped back when Kasumi proceeded to shoot crystals at him, which he defended himself with his tentacles that absorbed the damage. Bedding down onto all 4s, he then proceeded to rush Kasumi. When he got close enough, he tried to sweep her off her feet, but Kasumi jumped in the air to avoid the attack. Quickly thinking of a plan, Naruto used his Kagyun to kick up dust, blocking Kasumi from seeing anything, but she had a plan. Naruto then grabbed more shards that were littering the ground with his tentacles and threw them at his opponent, who dodged the projectiles perfectly, only for Naruto to appear behind her trying to punch her. However, she ducked under the attack and kicked him in the stomach. When she did this, Naruto grunted and quickly played one of his trump cards. He morphed his tentacles into a 3-clawed hand. He then grabbed her body and slammed her into the ground again and again before throwing her away. Kasumi grunted in some pain and jumped away as he tried to hit her with his tentacles. She then shot crystals into his back while he was in mid-attack, where they penetrated his back, making him spit out some blood. Shrugging off the attack, Naruto decided to switch things up a little bit. He then proceeded to retract his tentacles into his body and pulled out his second Kagyun. The black and gold lance formed into his left hand. Kasumi then hardened her wings and shot crystals at her brother. Naruto started running to the side with a multitude of crystals being shot on him. He then added some power into his lance and then it started sparking with electricity. He then jumped into the air and performed a horizontal swipe, making the lance shoot 3 electric balls at Kasumi. Seeing the balls coming at her softened her wings to look like flames, she then took off in a boost of speed. Appearing in front of Naruto, switched 2 of her 4 wings into blades, trying to swipe him in the chest. Seeing the attack coming, put his lance in front of him and transformed it into a shield. Kasumi, seeing him on the defensive, put more speed into her attack at the last second, causing a shock wave when it collided with Naruto's shield. When the attack connected, it formed multiple cracks onto Naruto's shield, shocking him from the force of the attack. Seeing him in a state of surprise, Kasumi took advantage of the situation. Appearing behind Naruto, she grappled him and tangled her legs all around him and slammed him into the ground with all her strength. She then quickly pinned his hands above his head while she straddled him to stop him from moving. Naruto's eyes widened at the position they were in. Their lips were close together, a breath apart from each other. Her hair was cascading down her face, almost touching his own, and her eyes were hazy and tired, or was there something else in them? "Alright Kasumi, you win this time," Naruto told her sister while he gently eased out of her grasp. He then pushed them up and was now sitting up with Kasumi still in his lap, looking at each other. Naruto then started to look at her eyes and could see an emotion in them that they couldn't quite put his finger on. They then heard the sound of 2 people giggling. They then turned to their side and were met with the faces of 2 women as well as the flash of a camera. What have we here? Are you finally going to kiss each other? We have such naughty children, but we're not complaining," teased the Shinigami, while Kami was simply behind her taking pictures of the 2 unfortunate children's compromising position while a poster was behind hers saying, "You can do it." Naruto, with wide eyes, quickly got up along with Kasumi. Both had blushes on their faces that were steadily growing due to their mother's teasing. They then proceeded chasing Kami, trying to take the camera and destroy the photos she took of them. After 10 minutes of chasing her, they caught her and broke the camera instantly. They then looked up happily, but that soon turned to horror at the other cameras Kami was holding with the exact same pictures on all of them. "You always have to create backups for your backups," she wisely told them before the cameras disappeared in a flash of light, making the twins grumble and pout at her. "At least you guys are able to catch her now. I remember she left you guys like dust in the wind," the Shinigami spoke. Over the 4 years that the twins had started living in and trained in the valley, they had become stronger than they ever thought they could. In the years that the twins lived here along with their mothers, they could certainly take care of themselves quite easily in a fight. In the years they had trained, they practiced with their Kagyuns before working on their chakra, but still preferred using the Kagyun over chakra-based attacks. Kasumi's Kagyun was useful indeed. In its first form, it looked like flames that could enhance her speed immensely, and it gave her kicks and punches more power if she timed her speed correctly. The second form that her Kagyun could perform was hardening and making them look crystallized. This allowed her to be able to shoot crystals from the wings. Another perk this had was she was able to spin the wings around her body while hard, making it look like a red and purple tornado was surrounding her and made it so projectiles deflected off of her. The next function was being able to reduce the size of the wings, making them smaller and sharper than a normal blade. Naruto was able to over time gain full control over his 8 tentacles and extremely effective as well as deadly in battle, but preferred to use 4 tentacles unless he facing multiple enemies. The tentacles were able to form together, making hands and claws when they merged. He also had help with Kurama and now could inject his tentacles with Kurama's chakra, making them start producing a highly acidic substance that dripped off of the tentacles. His lance was able to produce its own electrical current, which he can use to throw at people or just use to normally when attacking. After working on their chakra control with their mothers, they easily got it down in 2 months flat. After they studied the notes that they obtained from their family, they easily created their own Rasengans with some practice, but whenever they would form it, they would always turn pitch black with a crimson-red ring inside of it, different from the standard light blue. They were never fully ever able to grasp the idea of the Hiraishin due to their mothers wanting them to learn it by themselves. Instead, they simply started learning Fuinjutsu and found a way to counteract the jutsu. Adding the slight amount of power they gained from their mothers, they could simply disrupt the seals on the kunai, rendering it ineffective within a 2-mile radius. Due to all of the training that they had received due to their mother's training, which in reality was just the twins running away from their mothers who tried to kill them, were able to gain the strength of Itachi Uchiha at 13 when he became Anbu captain. "Now then let's go get you kids food, you haven't eaten for 2 days." The Shinigami told the twins, who nodded. Walking up to their mothers, the goddesses out their hands on the kids' shoulders and they all faded away to get Naruto and Kasumi food. In the real world, a family all reappeared together in the middle of a forest. They then all started walking, making small talk along the way until they reached their destination. After another 10 minutes of walking, the family all arrived at the edge of a cliff. Naruto and Kasumi added chakra to their feet and started walking down the walls of the cliff, and the goddesses simply levitated down. When they reached the bottom of the cliff, it was a little clearing with a body in the center of it. Walking up to the body, they turned it over and saw that the person was dead. They then proceeded to take apart the body in an orderly fashion and started stuffing it into a bag, getting blood on them in the process. They didn't care, they were used to it, all they did was look at the body sadly, wondering why the person had decided to end their life. After they finished putting the body and washing away the blood on their clothes, they then left the clearing. They kept looking around for a couple more hours and collected more dead bodies. Happy with the amount of bodies they acquired, they simply went back to the safety of their personal valley, keeping quiet the whole time. Back in the valley. When they arrived at the valley, the family immediately started storing most of the body parts away for later use, but still kept some out. The mothers of the children then conjured up a table for the kids and left. The twins looked at the body parts on the table for a second before their eye colors changed back into black and red. They looked at the piece of meat in front of them ravenously from not eating for 2 days. Quickly devouring the food in front of them, not caring about the blood they got on their mouths. After they finished eating, they cleaned their faces off with water from a stream nearby. This was normal for them and had gotten mostly immune to eating the flesh. They would usually go looking for food with their mothers near places that had high suicide rates. They would mainly just eat the dead corpses that had already died. Every once in a while though, when they went outside to look for missing nins to fight for combat experience, they would get the thrill of the hunt when the ninja ran away from them. Whenever this happened, they would kill them and eat the person on the spot when the body was still warm. While they could still eat normal human food, it wouldn't bring nutrients into their body and they would have to go look for human meat after a certain amount of time, or else their bodies would hurt tremendously. The only other plus side to flesh, other than tasting absolutely divine to them, is it will always make them stronger when they eat human flesh. Due to them constantly eating flesh for the past 4 years and constant training, they were able to activate their Kakuja. After the twins had finished, they went to look for their mothers. After a couple of minutes of searching, the 2 siblings found the goddesses sitting in a flower field. The twins both sat beside their mothers and they all sat in silence. "You 2 have gained so many abilities since the time we brought you here," Kami told the 2 children who were now looking at her. "Well, that's only because we had you Kachan and Kasan, without you we wouldn't even be able to do a quarter of the things we know today," Kasumi told her mothers with a smile on her face. "True, but we won't be able to teach you everything while we live here. So we have been talking about it and we believe you 2 are ready to go outside of the valley, and not just for combat experience or food, we mean actually go live in the real world now in a ninja village," the Shinigami said to the children, who agreed. "Do you guys have an idea what village you want to join?" Kami asked the children. Naruto and Kasumi turned to each other for a couple of minutes and talked before turning to respond to their mothers. We have an idea of where we want to go, but we want to think on it for a while before we decide. Naruto told to the two adults. Sigh, okay, then let's just leave this place and we can travel a bit before you two make up your minds. With that said, they all left the cave in search for a new place to call home. A couple days later. The Odd family was walking along a dirt road in the middle of a forest. The twins Naruto and Kasumi were playing a simple game of tag while their mothers were watching them, amused that they still acted like kids. Naruto, stop, I sense a familiar presence nearby that I haven't felt in a long time. Spoke Kurama, in which Naruto immediately stopped, causing Kasumi to bump into him and fall onto her butt. Everyone then looked at Naruto and wondered why he stopped. What do you mean familiar? And where is it coming from? Questioned the blonde in his head to Kurama. I can sense the two-tailed Nibi a couple miles away from here. It seems she seems to have been sealed into a Jinchuriki that is in a small group and is currently being chased by another group. Spoke Kurama with urgency, causing the blonde to widen his eyes at the information that he just received. Is everything alright, dear? Did Kurama say something we should know about? Asked Kami in a calm voice. Naruto, Nai, what was so important that you had to stop and make me fall over? Asked Kasumi, a little mad that she fell. Apparently the two-tailed Jinchuriki is nearby and is being chased right now. We need to leave now and find out why. Naruto informed everyone, who was surprised at the information. They all quickly nodded, but before they left, Naruto and Kasumi put on some masks their mothers made them. Naruto's mask was white with one eye hole on the right eye's position and 3 zigzag lines on the left eye, with 2 lines at the mouth's position slanted downward. Kasumi's mask was the same, except the eye hole was on the left eye position and slants on the right eye. These masks were special due to them being extremely durable, could distort their voice, and was able to react to the user's will, so if the person wanted a way to eat without taking the mask off, then it would rearrange itself and make an opening where the mouth was located. But the masks put on, and making sure that everyone was ready, the goddesses put their hands on the twins and vanished into thin air towards the two-tailed container's location. At the Nibi's location. When they arrived at the location of the Nibi Jinchuriki, they saw a group of 4 kids with cuts and bruises being surrounded by a group of 6 male shinobi. They looked at the plates on their foreheads and found that they came from Kumagakure. The kids that were being surrounded by the adult shinobi were group 3 girls and 1 boy. Well, did you finally stop running? We can finally get this over with and kill you, just stay still, this will only hurt a lot, you demon and her friends. One of the shinobi said while walking towards the kids with a kunai in his hand. The kids may have acted strong in their posture, but you could tell through their eyes that they were scared. You do know that trying to kill kids is inhumane without a good reason. Due to this, I choose your punishment to be death. Told Naruto in a childlike distorted voice, making everyone turn in his direction. When the male group of shinobi turned around to look at the new voice, they were met with the final image of tentacles and crystals going towards them before they died. The 4 kids that were Naruto and Kasumi's age looked towards the newcomers in slight fear due to seeing a flash of Naruto and Kasumi's red and black eyes behind their masks. Oh great, now there are even more people and they easily took out our pursuers. They are probably going to take us hostage and then sell us off somewhere and gain money. When we're sold, we will probably go with some weird who said the only boy in the group before he was hit in the head by one of his female teammates. Amo Urusai. This is not the time for you to talk. Spoke a red-headed girl towards the boy who was now known as Amoy. Amoy is a young, dark-skinned boy with short, spiky, white hair and dark eyes. This is the perfect time to be worrying Carrie, they can very easily kill us if they wanted to. Amoy said to the red-head who was named Carrie. Carrie is a dark-skinned girl, long spiky red hair and amber eyes. Both of you just need to shut up and save it for later. Said another one of the girls, looking at Amoy and Carrie with a stern look. Yes, Samui. Both Amoy and Carrie told the girl. Samui is a fair-skinned woman wearing a stoic, aloof expression on her face. She has blue eyes and straight blonde hair framing her face, cut in an asymmetrical bob style, with the front bangs reaching her shoulders. Now then, since we got that out of the way. Why don't you tell me why you guys are all on your own being chased, and who is the leader of this band of misfits? Kasumi asked with a distorted childish voice. When she spoke, the kids across from them focused onto her. The leader would be Miyujito Nai, and we don't have to tell you the reason why we were being chased, it is none of your business. Said the last girl in the group. Yujito was much like Samui, she had fair skin and long, straight, blonde hair and a ponytail, her eyes were a dark blue with vertical slitted pupils. I wanted to change her eyes. Is it due to you being the Jinchuriki of the Nibi? Asked the goddesses who appeared out of nowhere behind the kids, scaring them and shocking them since they knew Yujito's secret. How do you know about that, and who are you? Questioned Yujito, who was shocked with the women that appeared out of nowhere. We know because I am like you, I hold the Kyuubi in my body. Well, some of him at the moment, but I plan on gaining the rest at a later date. As for the 2 women, they are our troublesome mothers. Naruto informed the group of kids who were shocked from meeting another Jinchuriki and relaxed slightly at his answer. All the goddesses gained a tick mark from being called troublesome by their own son. I swear they complain all the time and making us doing everything for them due to them being lazy, Kasumi added in her own input, making the goddesses gain another tick mark. Now can you tell us why you guys are on your own and not in a village? Questioned Naruto. We won't tell you anything else unless you take off your masks and tell us your names now. Said Samui in a firm tone. All Naruto and Kasumi did was look at each other and nod. They took off their masks together and shocking the kids with their black and red eyes before they switched back their normal blue and violet color. My name is Naruto and this is Kasumi, it's a pleasure to meet you all. Naruto spoke in a fluid voice without it being distorted from the mask. When he finished talking, a certain perverted cat two-tailed Biju decided to voice her opinion to Yujito in her head. My kitten, would you listen to his voice and his face, he is literally a gold mine. I can also feel the power that he is suppressing. I command you to ravage him now and claim him as your mate this instant. It is also a plus that he holds Kurama Nai in his body. The two-tailed Biju said to her container Yujito and proceeded to send her mental images of sexual positions they could perform. Yujito, seeing the positions, quickly started to blush wildly and started shaking her head trying to get rid of the images. Matatabi, stop it. This is not the time or the place to start this even if he is handsome. Yujito told her companion, who only huffed and started grumbling to herself about having a mean container. I see that your Biju gives you trouble. Naruto Nai's Biju always does the same thing but doesn't make him blush that hard. Told a giggling Kasumi to Yujito, who was still blushing but to a lesser extent. Now that we told you our names, can we know the reason you guys are on your own? Asked Naruto to the group of kids, who nodded more relaxed knowing they weren't in danger. As you know, I am the Jinchuriki of the Nibi. My friends and I used to belong to the village of Kumagakure. I was always hated and I was shown that every day when the villagers would glare at me and deny me many things. I was halfway through my first year in the ninja academy when some drunken dumbass tried attacking me. He almost killed me, and that's when the Nibi helped by taking control for a short time and she killed the person. People were freaked out and started saying that I should be locked up or executed before I could kill someone again. In order to avoid this, the Raikage's only choice was to remove me from the village. When we left the village, we were then chased by shinobi trying to kill us, and you know the rest, explained Yujito with hate in her voice, while her friends' faces were solemn. What about the rest of you guys? Asked Naruto to the rest of Yujito's group, who looked at him before Samui started speaking. Yujito, Kari, and Amoy were my only friend at the time. I had a brother named Atsui, but he died last year because of a sickness that the village's medics couldn't heal. When I heard that Yujito was being forced to leave the village, I decided to join her. Amoy and Kari soon tagged along with us due to them being orphans. Told Samui in a depressed tone that was also shared with Amoy and Kari. Well, now I understand why the ninja were attacking you now. Told Naruto. He then looked towards his sister, who was pissed at the story she was told. Kasumi noticed that her brother was looking at her. She then walked over to him and asked him a question in a whisper. Do you think that we should bring them with us? We already planned what village to live and it doesn't affect them negatively. Kasumi asked her brother, who thought about it for a second before he nodded, and they turned back to the other group who was waiting patiently. Would you guys like to join our group? We were on our way to a village to live in and you guys look like you need supplies. Naruto asked the group, who got into little huddle and started whispering with each other, taking looks at Naruto's group every once in a while. After conversing with each other for a bit, they then turned back to Naruto and Kasumi. What village did you guys have in mind? Samui asked, looking at them critically, seeing if they were going to lie, but it was near impossible due to their faces being emotionless. Out of all the main hidden villages, we had to study for a bit before we made our decision. We won't be going to Konohagakure due to personal reasons. Next is Kumagakure, we can't go there due to you having been forcefully removed. Then we have Sunagakure, it was too hot for our tastes and didn't feel like living in a desert. Kurigakure has been having trouble with its government lately and it might lead to war in a few years and we wouldn't want to be there when it does happen. Naruto was explaining to the other group. Then that would leave the only last available village to be Iwagakure. Can you tell us what happened between you guys and Konoha? Amoy finished Naruto's thought process. The group all surprised when they saw hate in Naruto and Kasumi's eyes. We will just say at the moment we don't have fond memories of Konoha. So are you guys going to join us or not? Kasumi asked Yujito's group. The kids from Kumo started talking to each other again before looking back at Naruto and Kasumi. We will join you on your journey to Iwa, your group doesn't seem that bad and we are all out of supplies as well as have injuries. Yujito answered for her group. They then saw Naruto and Kasumi smile along with their mothers. Well then we should get going, shouldn't we? We should probably fix the damages on your body first. Kami said before she and the Shinigami walked up to them before grabbing their shoulders, making the kids tense. They immediately relaxed when they felt their bodies feel wonderful and widened their eyes when they saw the cuts on their bodies disappear in an instant. When the goddesses were finished healing the injured kids, they then looked at Naruto and Kasumi with glowing red eyes. "Now then, what were you guys saying that we were troublesome and lazy?" asked the Shinigami to Naruto and Kasumi, who were now sweating bullets as their mothers walked towards them. We were just playing, we didn't mean any harm," Naruto told Kasumi, who were backing up slowly before they took off in a full-on sprint away from their mothers. Their aunt sister. They should know better by now. "Should I get the feathers?" "Yup, I will go get the honey and ropes. Let's go get our disrespectful children." With that said, the two goddesses started chasing the twins, planning on give them a punishing them. On the side, Yujito, Samui, Kari, and Amoy are looking at the family before they all started chuckling to themselves. "They seem pretty cool," Samui said, and everyone nodded before they started running and trying to catch up to Naruto and Kasumi, who were now covered in chicken feather tied upside down on a tree and towards their future home of a Wagakure with a strange family. The Konoha. It was a warm afternoon in the Leaf Village. The sun was as bright as it usually was, shining the village with its warming rays. The village was as lively as ever, and you could see many people going around the village taking care of business. Unlike many other villages, even though Konoha was the most powerful village in the elemental nations, it didn't seem militaristic or cold. Many people, if they saw Konoha, would say that it wasn't a shinobi village. However, the mountain that surrounded the north part of the village was a dead giveaway. In it were carved faces of the most powerful shinobi to ever live. This was the sight that Narumi Namikaze and Kasumi Namikaze saw every day. They were the village's princesses and heroes, as well being a part of the honorable Namikaze family. This family was one of the most respected throughout the elemental nations, with their father Minato Namikaze being the current Yondaime Hokage. Their mother was also another well-respected Kunoichi, even after her time as a ninja was abruptly stopped. Due to being the daughters of both legends, they were considered one of the best families possible. Narumi would look at the families that were spending time together and adopt a disheartened expression. One of the families she was currently looking at had two parents on a bench smiling at their eldest son, chasing around his two younger siblings on the playground. Observing the family, she couldn't help but be reminded of her brother and sister that had disappeared 2 years ago. While they would still be greeted as they normally did, it seemed that nobody noticed that their elder sibling abandoned the village, bringing down her mood even more. She turned to her left towards her sister Naruko, who was looking through a shop window with jewelry on display. The night that the twins left, the Hokage Minato Namikaze immediately sent his Anbu and trusted shinobi to search every possible place Naruto and Kasumi could have went. Their searching for the twins never came back positive, even when they went as far to the Land of Fire's borders. He never released it to the civilian community that his eldest siblings went missing, but nobody seemed to notice anyway. The next day, after her elder brother and sister disappeared, Narumi and Naruko asked their parents why they never cared about their elder sibling. They had responded saying that they were the primary focus at the moment, learning how to control the Kyuubi's chakra and making them happy so it wouldn't corrupt them in the future, causing them to forget about Naruto and Kasumi. Narumi then down and wondered when things had started changing. Flashback. She remembered how Naruto and Kasumi weren't always mean and cold towards everyone. Her elder siblings used to smile, even if you could barely notice it due to how small it was. It started one day when Narumi and Naruko were taken into the forest to play, and Naruto and Kasumi were tasked with bringing them back home by their parents. When they returned home, they were greeted with the sight of their parents Minato and Kushina sitting on the couch waiting for them. "Hello Naruko-chan and Narumi-chan, did you two have fun?" Kushina asked her youngest children, not even checking on her eldest children. Natsumi and Naruko nodded their heads up and down excitedly, while Naruto and Kasumi stayed silent as they always have done, knowing their mother would forget to ask them as well. "That's good, we having something to discuss with Naruko-chan and Narumi-chan. So Naruto and Kasumi, can you please go up into here so we can talk to them?" Minato asked the eldest twins. "Why can't we stay out here and listen as well? It should concern us as well, shouldn't it?" Kasumi asked her parents a logical question. "This doesn't concern the two of you. Now go to your room or you won't be having dinner tonight if you talk back again. We will call you down when we finish our conversation," Minato told Naruto and Kasumi, slightly annoyed. Naruto and Kasumi just nodded, having no expression on their faces. Turning around and heading upstairs so they won't get in more unneeded trouble than they wanted. As soon as Minato and Kushina were sure that the two eldest twins went into their room, they started talking to the two children still in front of them. Minato then started asking them if they were hearing a voice talking inside their head or felt angry randomly. After the parent had finished asking their questions, they then told the twins that they were the Jinchuriki for the Kyuubi and why they had been training since they were small to control the Biju. After having a long conversation with the two kids and comforting them, they finally calmed down. "Now then, we can talk about this later and have some dinner," Kushina said to the two twins, who nodded. While everyone was getting ready for dinner, nobody had ever informed Naruto and Kasumi, who were once again angry that they were forgotten. After that day, Naruto and Narumi were then being trained by their parents in controlling the Kyuubi's chakra, along with their normal training routine. Over time, the youngest twins had been started to get more praise from the villagers and their parents, slowly forgetting their elder siblings. When they would see them around the house, they would have a cold personality, effectively keeping people away from them. Slowly but surely, Naruto and Kasumi were leaving people's minds like they never existed. Flashback end. Narumi was shaken out of her thoughts when Naruto shook her. "Are you okay, Narumi-chan? You had a sad look on your face." Naruto questioned her sister. "Yes, I'm fine, Naruto-chan. Come on, we have to go start making dinner for later tonight," Narumi told her sister. She looked skeptical but agreed. They finished talking and started heading home and got the normal happy greetings they normally received from the villagers. They returned home and walked through the front door. As normal, the house was as quiet as ever. "Do you think Ka-san will want to cook dinner with us tonight?" Naruto asked her sister, who only shrugged in her shoulders in response, showing she didn't know. "There's only one way to find out, Naruto-chan, let's go find out," Narumi told her sister. They then walked upstairs towards the rooms. A little bit of walking later, they were standing in front of Naruto and Kasumi's former room. They knocked on the door and received no response on the other side. "So I guess we will have to make dinner tonight, since she doesn't feel good as usual," Naruto told her sister, who nodded her head solemnly in response. They turned the door handle and walked inside the barren room their elder siblings used to live in. They looked towards the bed in the room and saw that their mother was sleeping on it. They walked closer and looked at their mother, who had dried tear stains on her face and frown. "She's having another bad dream," Naruto told her sister, who nodded. They wiped the tear stains off her face and they both kissed her on the head. Kushina seemed to like it due to her smiling while still asleep. They then fixed the covers and tucked their mother in properly before they both walked out of the room quietly. "Come on, we have to go start dinner since she is sleeping. I believe we planned to have soup tonight if I remember correctly," Narumi told her sister, who agreed. The two twins then started walking downstairs and into the kitchen, getting the materials ready. Narumi took the vegetables out of the fridge and onto the counter with a cutting board. Naruto started chopping up the meat that they started thawing out earlier this morning. "Don't forget that we have to put 2 cents dinner in the oven when we are done," Naruto reminded her sister. Narumi nodded her head while she started chopping the vegetables that were in front of her. Narumi then started of all the things that had happened due to her elder sibling leaving. Minato had gotten sad but had to keep a positive attitude for the village. He would mostly come home late at nights looking tired from drowning himself in paperwork. Whenever squads of ninja were on a mission, they would always be informed to keep a lookout for his missing children. Due to the constant searching that had happened, the other villages had become curious to what had gotten the blonde Hokage so worked up about, but were ever able to find out. Kushina had definitely taken it the hardest out of everyone in the family. She would sometimes sleep in Naruto and Kasumi's room and would cry while she slept in there. She didn't smile as much as she used to, but whenever she did, it wasn't as happy. The week that Naruto and Kasumi left, she had been searching for them so much that she would always put herself into extreme amounts of exhaustion. She had calmed down over the 2 years that their elder siblings had left, but you could see her staring off into space every once in a while, wondering where her children went. Narumi finished cutting all the vegetables and put it into the pot where they were putting all the other ingredients. Naruto did the same as her sister. They then washed both of their hands and cleaned up the kitchen. "I'm sure mom just wants to sleep right now. We haven't checked our garden today, so we need to water the plants. We should go do that right now while we wait for the food to finish," Naruto told her sister, who smiled and nodded. They then walked outside and went to their little garden and started watering the assortment of flowers they had. While they were doing this, Narumi's mind wandered back to her brother and sister. "We still have 2 more years until we can enter the ninja academy. Then we can go look for One-E-san and Ani-san and bring them back to Konoha when we graduate and are able to start doing missions," Natsumi thought to herself while she looked at the endless sky above her head. Although when she said this, she got a feeling in her heart that it wasn't going to come true. At Wagakure. It had been 3 weeks since Naruto and Kasumi met Yujito and her group. At first, Yujito and her group had still been slightly cautious over Naruto and his group, but that quickly went away seeing how friendly after spending time with them. Soon after, they had become friends with the kind and funny attitudes that Naruto and Kasumi had shown them. Naruto and Kasumi enjoyed their new friends they had made. Yujito was certainly fun to hang out with, she had a nice personality and was serious when needed. Samui was also entertaining. She may try to stay stoic in front of everyone, but it was easy for Naruto and Kasumi to make her smile. Karui was a little difficult, but nonetheless enjoyable. They just had to make sure and try not to make her angry or it wouldn't be pretty. Amoy was a little weird. He may have been smart, but he always worried about the smallest things, which were a little annoying. As they were on their journey, it was a little uneventful for Naruto. With the time that he spent time with Yujito, Samui, and Kari. Naruto had slowly got this weird feeling in his chest whenever he was near them. It felt exactly the same way whenever he was around his sister Kasumi, only smaller, and it confused him greatly. Seriously, why does it feel he has butterflies in his stomach? When he had asked his mothers what the feeling was, they simply smiled, giggled, and told him he will figure it out later. The only problem is that Naruto and Kasumi never told Yujito's group of their cannibalistic eating arrangements in order not to lose their first ever friends. In order for the goddesses to keep their identities a secret as gods from everyone, they had made up names for themselves. Kami went by the name of Narine, and the Shinigami became Nanis. After the traveling that they all had done, they finally arrived at the village of Iwagakure. After waiting to have a meeting with the Tsuchikage, they were finally allowed to go in and were standing in front of the old man right at this moment in time. Inoki was an old man, yes, but he was the current Tsuchikage, as well as a living legend much like Hiruzen Sarutobi. He was able to get into a fight with Madara Uchiha and has been the only living Kage to have done so. He knew that he was old, and it doesn't help that his granddaughter Kuritsuchi tells him this whenever she can. At this moment he was staring at a group of 6 kids and 2 women in front of him. He could easily tell that the boy and girl with white hair and black bangs were strong if his senses were working correctly. The boy in the white hair and black bangs, along with the other girl in the room with blonde hair and a ponytail, had extremely high chakra reserves, he could tell as well. Along with the group of kids there were 2 women, he could tell that they were about mid-jonin level. The goddesses are hiding their power. Naruto looked at the old man in front of him and easily got annoyed. Why are all the old dudes so powerful? The Sandaime Hokage from Konoha was old when we left and he is still labeled as the god of shinobi. It doesn't help that this guy is short and old, what a great combination. Naruto thought to himself. Inoki is a very short old man with a triangular beard and a mustache that has angular corners, a big red nose and thick eyebrows. The top of his head is completely bald, although he has long white hair on the lower half of his head, which is styled in a traditional Chanmage haircut, the back of which is tied with a yellow ribbon into a top knot. Inoki wears a green and yellow coat with a red collar. Underneath he wears the traditional Iwagakure outfit consistent of a light green version of Iwagakure's flak jacket and mesh armor. He however has both his sleeves of his shirt but kept the single lapel on his right side. Along with this, he wears sandals. I would like to greet you to my village. I can easily tell that the 2 white hair kids are strong and the 2 women are strong as well. My concern at the moment is why you all want to gain citizenship here at the village and join my ninja academy. So if you please, could you introduce yourselves to me, Inoki stated. We thank you for meeting with us. As for your village, it was the most logical out of all the main hidden villages. I am Naruto and this here is my sister Kasumi-chan. Naruto started off while Inoki was listening carefully. Naruto motioned Yujito forward with his hand to introduce herself and her little group. My name is Yujito Nai, and these are my friends Samui-chan, Amoy, and Kari-chan. It's a pleasure to meet Tsuchikage-sama. Yujito finished her introduction while Inoki nodded before looking back at Naruto and Kasumi for his other questions. Kasumi, seeing him looking at Naruto and herself, took a breath before starting their reasoning. To answer your question, we are unable to go to Kumagakure due to getting banned from there. Kurigakure isn't having the best government stability at the moment. Then we just don't plain want to deal with Sunagakure due to the heat and Konohagakure due to us never wanting to live there ever again. Kasumi finished off. Inoki was intrigued to see the anger that filled Naruto and Kasumi's eyes when they mentioned Konoha. He also saw the rage from Yujito and her group and wondered to himself what caused these reactions. This is going to be interesting, Inoki thought to himself. I assume that you guys have a certain past with Konoha and Kumo, would you care to elaborate? Inoki said, still looking at everyone. Naruto sighed a little bit knowing that they might have to explain their history. He nodded and looked back at Yujito's group who all nodded expecting the same question from the Tsuchikage. We can tell you, our only request is that you remove the Anbu from the room and activate a silencing seal. Naruto requested. Inoki was confused hearing this but still agreed. With a wave of his hand the Anbu from the room dispersed and with his other hand made a half tiger hand sign. When he did this the room flashed in various places, showing that the seals had been activated. Inoki then grunted telling them to continue. Yujito and her group stepped up first in front of the Tsuchikage and he directed his attention towards them. Yujito has a large chakra reserve for one so young and she looks familiar. I can't quite place why she looks familiar, hopefully she can jog my memory. Inoki thought to himself to hear Yujito talk. As I have said before, my name is Yujito Nai and these are my friends. We used to have to take up residency in Kumagakure before I was kicked out. The reason for this is due to me being the Jinchuriki of the Nibi and me getting unfairly accused. Yujito told Inoki, who now currently had wide eyes. He finally remembered where he had seen this girl in front of him before. She had been on a report he had been handed a long time ago. This also clearly explains why she has such a large chakra reserve when she is so young. The status of being a Jinchuriki is extremely surprising, but it also explains your unnatural chakra supply. I can feel. I highly doubt that the Reikage would simply let you go. Inoki told her, looking at her in the eye. He heard Carrie breath out a puff of air before looking at him annoyed. Well, you are right about that, he wouldn't simply let her go. She killed someone in self-defense, and it doesn't help she was disliked throughout the bitch of a civilian population Kumo contained. The civilians started reacting bad and started riots and protesting. The only way the Reikage could stop this was removing Yujito from the village. When we left, we were attacked by ninja that were following us. Naruto-kun and Kasumi-chan then saved us before they could kill us. Carrie finished her rant in front of the old man. Inoki listened and could understand where the Reikage was coming from. He had his own Jinchuriki Han and Rashi, which were splendid shinobi in his opinion. Though the only problem was that they weren't liked even if they kept to their own accord. If something like this ever happened, he would more than likely have to go through the same procedures that the Reikage went through. If I was in his position, then I would have more than likely had done the same thing he did, so I can't blame him. Though when Yujito left the village, why did you other kids tag along? Inoki told them. Yujito-chan was our friend when she was forced to leave the village. We were all orphans with no family and nothing keeping us connected to the village. I used to have a brother, but he died a couple years ago. Yujito-chan, Amoy, and Carrie-chan helped me through it. We all left because she is our friend and couldn't let her leave the village on her own. Samui put in her own thought on the subject. Even if she can be a little bit mean and bossy at times, much like Samui-san, she cares for us and we all took care of each other in that village. I left with her along with the other girls after she left the village. Amoy told him with passion, and his words surprising everyone that knew him since he finds things like this tedious. Another reason is that if I didn't leave, then I would be worrying over them. Then I would get bad grades when I was in the academy in Kumo. Then I would miss important things in the middle of class. Then when I became a ninja, I would be dead weight slowing down my team. I would mess up a mission getting my team captured, and Amoy would have continued his rant if Samui and Carrie didn't hit him on the head. There was the Amoy that everyone remembered. Like the idiot said before he got off track with his useless thinking. I left with Yujito-chan when she was removed from the village due to us being friends for as long as I could remember. Carrie told Inoki while looking at the floor at Amoy, who was rubbing the bump on his head. Inoki nodded, looking at the Amoy who was on the floor, knowing that women can be ruthless. Leaving a village for the sake of a friend. I like that. You have good friends, Miss Nai, make sure you take care of them. Inoki told Yujito, who was smiling. Inoki then directed his attention back towards Naruto and Kasumi, who were slightly smiling as well. Now you two kids and adults, I believe it is your turn to tell your backstory. Inoki told Naruto. Hearing this, Yujito's group immediately paid attention, wanting to hear their newest friend's history with Konoha. Naruto looked at Kasumi and she nodded, telling him to start. Before we start, we wanted to tell you something first. As you know, Konoha has been acting weird the past couple of years. I'm sure that all of you know this. The reason they are like that is because Kasumi-chan and I left that village 2 years ago. Naruto started off, immediately getting even more of Inoki's attention. And what is so extravagant that Konoha would worry that 2 kids would leave the village? Inoki asked a question everyone was wondering. The reason for this is we were the former children of Kushina and Minato Namikaze. Kasumi told them, finishing up what her brother was going to say. It got dead quiet when Kasumi had revealed a part of their history. What? Is what the room occupants yelled at once. Carrie immediately went and tackled Naruto onto the floor and started shaking him wildly. What do you mean that you are those 2 legendary people's kids? Hurry up and answer me, Snowball. Carrie yelled at Naruto, making fun of his white hair. Kasumi, seeing her brother being shaken to death, walked over to Carrie and poked her in the head. If you keep shaking him like that, you're going to turn his brain into goop and he won't be able to tell you. Kasumi told Carrie, who rubbed the spot she was poked on her head. I guess you're right about that. Carrie responded, getting off Naruto. Kasumi then picked up her brother, who had swirls in his eyes. Inoki then cleared his throat, getting everyone's attention. Now that I have everyone's attention, Naruto, can you please elaborate on what your sister just said? Inoki asked with a calm exterior, but within his body his mind was running a mile per minute. Naruto stood up perfectly fine, as if he didn't get almost shaken to death by Carrie. It is just as my sister had just informed you, we were the eldest children of the Yondaime Hokage and his wife before we abandoned the village 2 years prior to coming here. Naruto then told everyone what his sister had just stated. After Naruto said this, Inoki was sitting there behind his desk, rubbing his temples, wondering how to take in the information he was just given. He then started to think about Minato and his confrontation he had with him at one point in time. He had quickly learned that Minato hated war with a passion, but he still fought because it was his duty for his village. Over time he had lowered his hate towards Minato and had become neutral towards the blonde man. First off, why do you say former children, and why did you leave the village in the first place? Inoki started off trying to calm everyone down at this moment. Kasumi-chan and I were the firstborn of Kushina and Minato Namikaze, 6 years before the Kyuubi attack. Over time we were forgotten over the next pair of twins that Kushina gave birth to. It was blatantly obvious we weren't wanted in that household and throughout the village. We were treated as pests that go in everyone's way even if we didn't do anything wrong. Naruto told his tale while everyone was listening intently to what they were being told. One day we finally had enough when they had hit us when we tried to impress them. We then left the village soon after, and we had gained new parents along the way. Along with gaining new parents they had helped release a bloodline in the process. Due to us getting this bloodline our DNA structure was changed permanently. With the help of our new parents we then trained in our new bloodline and became extremely proficient in it. Kasumi finished off their history with Konoha. Throughout the story everyone's perspective of Konoha was slowly going downhill. So you're telling me then Yondaime Hokage, the man who preaches about everyone being family, had forgotten his own children and never took care of them at all? Samui asked, breaking everyone out of their thoughts. It is ironic, isn't it? Kasumi-chan and I always wondered if there was something wrong with us. Over time we just gave up and only cared about each other, especially the night that we left. Naruto told everyone while Kasumi had a sad smile on her face. At least they are out of our lives for the time being and we have a new family. Kasumi put in her own opinion. Inoki was listening closely to Naruto and Kasumi as they retold their past. He then observed that you would be right in your assumption. We took them from their village making them become our children and gave them the love that they were denied with their former family. Kami told Inoki, who nodded at what she said. I don't believe I had caught you two women's names. Inoki said. How rude of us. My name is Narine and this is my sister Nanis. Kami introduces her sister and herself. Inoki nodded his head towards them before looking back towards Naruto and Kasumi. When you said that you guys had changed your DNA, you had gained a bloodline with the help of these women. Can you please demonstrate? Inoki asked, receiving a nod from Naruto and Kasumi. To the surprise of everyone, they surprised everyone, changing their eyes into the intimidating red and black color. They then activated their Kagyuns, next Naruto sprouting his tentacles and spear into his hand while Kasumi created her wings. Everyone just stared at them amazed from never have seen anything like it before. Even Inoki was staring at the extra appendages in slight awe. Everything right here is part of our bloodline. We are able to grow extra appendages that are called Kagyun. With our eyes we are able to see chakra when they are activated, our skin is extremely durable, and we are easily 5 times stronger than a full-grown adult. Naruto started listing off the things that their bloodline could conduct. So Tsuchikage-sama, are we able to join your village and become ninja in the future? Kasumi asked Inoki. He immediately nodded. It would be foolish of me not to allow you into this village. You will all become great ninja, I can already tell, and can't wait to see you all progress. Inoki responded to them, who all had smiles of their own. Due to you having no place to live in this village, you are all able to live in my own home until you all can afford your own place to live. Inoki informed them, who all nodded even happier than before. You all can wait outside and I will take you to my home in a few minutes. Inoki told them. Everyone was nodded before they started walking out of the room. We have something else to discuss with the Tsuchikage, we will be out in a few moments. Kasumi told Yujito, who nodded, a little confused what else they had to talk to the old man with. With everyone one out of the room, Naruto and Kasumi then looked towards Inoki, who was looking out of the window in his office well in thought. To think that Minato Namikaze would leave these children by themselves most of their lives. They have remarkable potential and can easily buy some of the best ninja in the future. This is going to be interesting, but a pain in the ass just great. Inoki thought to himself. Tsuchikage-sama, there is something else that we need to discuss while everyone is out of the room. Naruto told the old man, breaking him out of thought. Inoki went back to his desk before he looked back towards the group of 4 people in front of him. What is it? Inoki asked, looking at the 2 kids and women in front of him. It's about our bloodline. It requires us to eat certain things in order for us to stay alive. Kasumi told Inoki, who was listening, wondering why they needed to tell them. I'm sure you can find whatever you need from the multiple food market sections we have throughout the village. Inoki stated, looking at the paperwork on his desk. That's the problem, we can't get it in the food markets. Unless you have vendors that sell human meat. Kasumi stated, making the Tsuchikage stop dead in his tracks. What do you mean by that? Inoki asked, clearly confused. In order for us to survive from our bloodline, we have to digest human flesh, or else we get into a large amount of pain after a certain amount of time and die if we don't eat anything. We found a way to get past this problem by eating the corpses of people who have committed suicide or people we just plain don't like. Naruto said while watching Inoki for his reaction. Is that so? Is this the only thing you two can eat? Inoki asked, trying to get as many details as possible. We are able to eat normal food, but it doesn't give enough nutrients that we need in order to survive. Kasumi responded. Inoki grunted as a sign that he understood even if he had a large headache at this moment. As long as you two are able to keep your feeding under control, I will have no objections with the methods in which you get food. Just don't eat the civilian and ninja inside the village. Inoki informed them, getting a nod from the two twins. Now since you two are still here, I have a small amount of questions. Naruto, why do you have such a bigger chakra reserve than your sister? Inoki questioned the two twins. The reason for that is a hold a part of the Kyuubi. Naruto told the Inoki, who started rubbing his temples again. What do you mean that you hold part of the Kyuubi? It was believed by me that your former siblings held the Kyuubi. Inoki asked. It is true that the two kids of the Yondaime hold the Kyuubi, but only a small part of it. The only problem is that they only hold the chakra and not the soul, so they will never be able to control it. During the sealing that night, the Kyuubi broke off part of its chakra and soul and was absorbed into me. Due to this, I am able to use the Kyuubi's chakra along with his help due to us meeting during our training. Naruto responded. So you are able to talk to the Bijuu and it helps you. Then the ironic part is the Yondaime has useless Jinchuriki that will never be able to use its power. That's funny. Inoki said while laughing inside his head. Yes, I am able to communicate with my Bijuu and have a great relationship with him, much like Yujito-chan has with her Bijuu. Naruto said, confirming what Inoki stated. Another thing is, your two mothers going to want to join the Shinobi Corps? Inoki asked. I and my sister Narine have no interest in joining the ninja program. We are only here because our children chose this village to live in. The Shinigami told Inoki. I guess that's all I wanted to ask you. Does everyone else know about your eating condition? Inoki asked Naruto and Kasumi, who only looked away from him. Seeing this, he got his answer. He then sighed, looking at the two twins with a serious expression. They will find out in the future whether you tell them or not. It would be better to tell them sooner than later, Inoki told them, and putting in his own opinion. We know, but we would rather not tell them about this. We just met them and have just recently become our first friends since we had stopped training. Kasumi told Inoki. Inoki sighed before nodding. Very well, it is your decision, but we should get going and make the others stop waiting for us. Inoki told them before walking out of his office with Naruto and Kasumi right behind him. So was everything fine? Amoy asked them when they came out of the office. Naruto and Kasumi nodded and smiled, but Yujito's group could see something bothering Naruto and Kasumi. Yeah, let's get going or else the old man will leave us behind. Naruto told them. After he said that, they all then started following the old man as he went towards their new home for the time being. 10 minutes later. The group of children and adults finally arrived at Inoki's living quarters after walking for a while. When they gazed upon the outside of the house, it was 2 stories tall and was made out of plain and boring rock, much like the rest of the village. It honestly didn't look that big, and they were all wondering how they were going to fit inside. This is the place that you brats will be living until you can get your own place to live. It isn't one of the most extravagant places to live, but it's cozy and it grows on you over time. Inoki told them. They then walked inside the house, and like he said, they were immediately relaxed when they walked in through the door. They looked into the living room and saw that it was larger than it looked outside. In the center, it had a coffee table in front of a fireplace and couches surrounding it. They then looked into the kitchen, and it had large countertops, multiple wooden cabinets with food filling them all, and a propane stove. When everyone finished looking around, they found Inoki sitting on the couch. Their rooms will be upstairs, you can choose any of them except the very first one. My granddaughter is living with me because her father is gone for long periods of time on missions, and it's better for her. A queen-size bed, restroom with a shower, walk-in closet, and a bookcase. They finished looking around upstairs and found Inoki still in the living room. Thank you again, Tsuchikage-sama, for letting us stay in your house. Naruto said, and everyone nodded. It's fine, and just call me Inoki. I get called Tsuchikage enough at work, I would rather not get called it at home as well. Inoki told all of them, who smiled in return. He then got up and walked to the coffee table in the middle and picked up some keys before throwing each of them one. Those are your keys for this house. I still have to head back to the office for the day. I would suggest that you go and take a look around the village to get a feel for it. Inoki told them all before he headed to the front door of the house. He was about to leave before he stopped and looked back towards Naruto and Kasumi. You guys more than likely don't want the last names Namikaze or Uzumaki. Did you two ever think of a new last name? Inoki asked them. Naruto and Kasumi smiled in response. We have been thinking on ever since we started living with our mothers, and we chose the name Amaya. Naruto told the old man, who nodded his head. Very well, I will put that down when I'm making your village files. I also think that it would be best if we kept your past heritage a secret for a while, don't you agree? Inoki told them. Naruto and Kasumi nodded their heads in agreement. It wouldn't be good if Kushina and Minato came demanding them back to a village they don't wish to live in. But that taken care of, Inoki left the house heading back to his office. Well, I guess we should go look around the village like he told us, Naruto told everyone before they all left the house. They then all separated, going in different directions. Later in the day. It had been a couple hours since everyone had broken off from each other to look around the village. With a little searching, Naruto had found the library, ninja supply stop, and food markets. It was a little boring with the whole entire village being made of stone, but what can you expect? The people were nice whenever he greeted them. It was hundreds of times better than being ignored by everyone in Konoha. Naruto is still walking around observing the village he will now live in. He had a stick of strawberry pocky in his mouth and more in his pocket. He looked towards the sky, which was covered in clouds showing it might rain later. While he was walking, he came across a park that had people his age playing around. He then noticed a girl that was sitting all by herself on a bench, watching the other kids play with a look of sadness. Wondering what was wrong, he walked up to the girl until he was right beside her. She hadn't seemed to notice him, to focus staring at the kids that were playing in front of her. He then waved a hand in front of her, shocking her from not noticing someone next to her. She turned to the side and Naruto was able to get a good look at her. She was about the same age as she was, had pupil-less pink eyes and dark black hair. She's pretty. Just as pretty as Kasumi, Yujito, Samui, and Kari now that I think about it. Naruto thought to himself. He was then broken out of his thought when he noticed she was about to ask him something. "Who are you?" The girl asked Naruto, who in return smiled at her before sitting down next to her on the bench. "I'm Naruto Amaya, nice to meet you, what's your name?" Naruto asked the girl, who only looked at him weird because everyone knew who she was. "I'm Kuretsuchi, the Tsuchikage's granddaughter." The girl named Kuretsuchi told him. She then expected Naruto to start walking away from her due to being the granddaughter of the Tsuchikage's granddaughter. She was surprised to see him not leave, but instead get even more relaxed on the bench they were sitting on. "That's a pretty name for a pretty girl," Naruto told her truthfully. Kuretsuchi then blushed from being complimented from being called pretty. Nobody had ever told her name or she was pretty other than her dad. "Aren't you going to leave knowing who I am now?" Kuretsuchi asked him curiously. Naruto only gave her a weird look before putting another stick of pocky in his mouth. "Why would I do that?" Naruto responded to her. "Everybody tends to avoid me because I am the granddaughter of the Tsuchikage. They think that if something bad happens to me, they will get in trouble. I haven't had any friends for as long as I could remember. Whenever I would play with someone else my age, they would only act like they were having fun, but in reality they just didn't want to get in trouble." Kuretsuchi told Naruto, who frowned before smiling again. "I know how you feel." Naruto told her, making her get slightly mad. "How would you know what I went through? I bet you had friends and people that would love to be around you." Kuretsuchi responded a little heatedly. Naruto just kept smiling, but this time it wasn't as happy. "I have never had any friends either until a couple of days ago. I have a twin sister and she was in the same boat as me. We were each other's best friends in a place that nobody wanted or needed us. I don't believe that anyone should be alone no matter what," Naruto told Kuretsuchi, shocking her. She then felt sad for saying something before listening more to the boy in front of her. "You never lived here in Iwa before, did you? Where did you live before?" Kuretsuchi asked him. "My sister Kasumi and I used to live in Konoha. We had a family that never needed us or cared for us, so we left. My sister and I met some women who then became our new mothers and loved us with all their hearts. We met some other people recently and they became our first friends. We all came to Iwa to start a new life and become ninjas of the village," Naruto told her. Kuretsuchi got a little mad at the family that treated Naruto this way, as well as the village of Konoha. When she heard him saying he will join the ninja academy, she got happy. "You're going to join the academy here? I'm already signed up for it and can't wait for it," Kuretsuchi told him excitedly. Naruto, hearing her joining the academy, got happy as well, smiling even more. "Yup, my sister, new friends, and I are going to join the academy," he told her, still smiling. "I can't wait to start. I'm going to show everyone how awesome I am and kick all their asses," Kuretsuchi told him while pointing towards herself and puffing out her chest. Naruto simply laughed and smiled, making her get angry. "What? You don't think that I'm not going to do good while I'm there?" she asked him. Naruto had stopped laughing when he saw her mad, but he still kept smiling. "I know you're going to do it. I believe you can accomplish a lot of things if you put your all into it," Naruto told her, calming her down. He then stood up from the bench and looked back towards Kuretsuchi. "So Kuretsuchi, do you want to be friends? I would love to be your friend if you let me," Naruto told her. She smiled, looking at the ground. This was definitely one of the best days of her life. She looked back up towards Naruto with a large smile and nodded. For the rest of the day the two new friends played various games, such as tag and hide and seek. They had walked around the village some more with Kuretsuchi showing him places she likes to visit. While they were walking around the village, Naruto informed her that he was going to be living with her until him and his group could buy their own place. It surprised her greatly that her first friend was going to be living with her and that the grumpy old man agreed to it. While they were walking around, Naruto found out about her was that she is a very confident girl that loved to be sarcastic. She was also surprisingly nice, Naruto had figured out while he was playing with this calm and easygoing girl. Kuretsuchi found out through the day that Naruto was one of a kind. Nobody ever wanted to go near her, and when they did it never felt the same as the time she spent with Naruto. After playing with Naruto for the whole day, Kuretsuchi saw that the sun was starting to set. It also looked as if it was going to rain if the dark clouds that popped out of nowhere said anything. They then headed back towards their shared house for the night. They had just arrived back at the house when it started raining, lucky before they could get wet. When they walked inside, they saw multiple shoes by the door, showing everyone else was home as well. They walked into the living room and saw Yujito, Amoy, Samui, Carrie, and the goddesses talking amongst each other. They all had their hair wet, showing they probably took showers already. Naruto heard something in the kitchen and told Kuretsuchi to introduce herself to everyone. He walked into the kitchen and saw that Kasumi. She seemed to have taken a shower as well, she was in an apron making food. He slowly walked up behind her and looked over her shoulder. "Whatcha cooking?" Naruto asked Kasumi, she was shocked from having her brother sneak up on her. I'm just making steak with white rice and vegetables for dinner," Kasumi told him while blushing a bit. She had gotten out of the shower a while ago, so she could feel her brother breath down her neck. She would always get this weird feeling in her chest when she was around her brother. It wasn't normal and it annoyed her greatly, she would always be giddy around Naruto, as well as get a weird butterfly feeling in her gut. "That sounds good, I don't think I have ever seen you wear an apron on you before," Naruto told Kasumi. "Well, I didn't want to get dirty since I just took a shower." "How does it look?" she asked him before she turned around to look at him. "You look as pretty as you normally do, Kasumi-chan, maybe even a little more," Naruto told her, making her blush with the compliment. When Kasumi heard Naruto's response, it made the weird feeling in Kasumi's chest happen again. She just smiled and kissed her brother on cheek, making both of them blush more than they already were. "Thank you, now go take a shower while I get dinner ready." Kasumi told her brother, smiled and left the kitchen. Naruto took a brief look into the living room and saw that Kuretsuchi was fitting in nicely with everyone. He then went upstairs to take a shower like his sister told him to. While he was upstairs, he put up some simple privacy seals if he ever needed them. When he was finished with his shower, Kasumi had finished dinner. Over dinner, everyone seemed to talk about what they found out through the entire day. Kasumi and the goddesses seemed to have found the academy as well as some restaurants they wanted to visit later. Yujito, Samui, and Carrie had found the ninja supply shop and clothing shops. Before anyone even knew, a couple more hours passed and it was dark outside. The raining outside had started coming down harder, as well as a small amount of lightning and thunder. "I'm tired, I think I'm going to hit the sack now," Naruto told everyone. They all nodded before getting up themselves and decided to get ready for bed themselves. Naruto went into his room and got into a striped black and white shirt with red shorts for pajamas. With a quick goodnight to everyone, Naruto went towards his bed, laid down, and looked towards the ceiling. "I haven't talked to Kurama all day, I better see how he's doing," Naruto thought to himself and fell asleep to the sound of the rain and thunder outside. In Naruto's mindscape. Naruto opened up his eyes and saw the lush green forest that was his mindscape. He had created this forest to create the boring place that was his plain mindscape over the course of his training with his mothers. It was a simple forest with wild vegetation and some animals such as deers, rabbits, foxes, etc. running around. Naruto then started walking deeper into the forest to find his fox friend. After a couple of minutes, he came across Kurama simply laying his head on his paws. He was looking over a cliff, staring off into space. Naruto walked up to his friend and jumped onto the top of his head. "Hey Kurama, sorry I haven't talked to you all day, I have just been busy seeing the sights," Naruto told the fox, who grunted. "I know, I can see it through your eyes, don't you remember?" Kurama reminded the boy, who simply rubbed the back of his head. "What is your opinion of the village?" "In my opinion, it's not bad even if there are rocks everywhere," the fox told the boy atop his head. "I like it and don't have regrets coming here. The people are nice enough with a slight touch of grumpy. I had also made a new friend, if you saw her she's awesome, just like Kasumi-chan, Yujito-chan, Samui-chan, and Carrie-chan. She likes to act tough but is actually nice if you get to know her," Naruto told the fox, who was listening. "Ah yes, your new girlfriend, she was cute for a human. Are you going to add her to your harem of your other girlfriends? I'm not sure that Kasumi and the other girls are going to be happy," Kurama teased the boy that was blushing severely. "What the hell are you talking about, you old fox? I don't have a harem and I certainly don't have any girlfriends, even if all of the girls are really pretty," Naruto told the old fox, who was laughing in amusement. At least you don't deny that part. Kurama said, chuckling to himself with a grumbling Naruto on top of his head. Onto another topic, I can feel 2 more Jinchuriki within the village. Kurama informed the boy on his head. How come you didn't tell me earlier, and are you able to tell which ones they are? Naruto asked the fox. Of course I can tell which of my brothers and sisters are near. I wouldn't be the strongest if I couldn't do such a simple task. The 2 are Son Goku and Kakuo, the 4 and 5 tails respectively. I didn't tell you earlier so I didn't ruin your play date with your girlfriend. Kurama told Naruto while smirking in amusement. Damn it, Kurama. I said that she isn't my girlfriend. Naruto yelled at the fox, who was once again laughing. Whatever, you're just denying yourself. Kurama said before continuing. But we really should go and see them soon. I'm sure that you wouldn't mind meeting more Jinchuriki in the process. Kurama told the boy, who nodded his head in agreement. Yeah, I wouldn't mind looking for them tomorrow, I don't have anything planned. Naruto told the fox. Kurama then felt someone in the real world at Naruto's door. It looks like we have a plan then. It seems that you have a visitor in the real world, you should go check while I go back to sleep. Kurama told Naruto, who was confused who was by his room. Okay, I'll talk to you later, Kurama, good night. Naruto told his friend before he faded out of his mindscape, leaving the fox by himself. Outside Naruto's mindscape. Naruto woke up to the sound of someone knocking on his door. The rain from earlier was coming down much harder now, with thunder and lightning flashing outside. I was a little difficult to hear the knocking on the door over the noise outside. Then Naruto-kun. Kuritsuchi exclaimed in fear as lightning struck, making a huge thunderclap. Hey, are you still awake? Kuritsuchi asked. She was hugging herself as more thunder struck outside. She listened for a second to try and search for a noise inside the room, getting nothing but silence in return. I knew he already went to sleep. Kuritsuchi thought to herself sadly. She started to walk away right when the door opened. Kuritsuchi-chan? Naruto asked, tired, rubbing the sleepiness away from his eyes with his left hand. Kuritsuchi just simply stared at the floor, embarrassed for waking up her friend. Can I sleep with you? I'm afraid of the thunderstorms, I was starting to get over it, but this one is bad. Kuritsuchi told Naruto. She had put her head into his chest, she was shaking, and would flinch every time the lightning and thunder struck outside. Naruto simply smiled and put his arms around her petite frame. She slightly relaxed into his arms, but would still flinch. Wow, who would have thought the girl who wanted to be the best in the academy is scared of thunderstorms? Naruto thought to himself, still hugging her. I'm fine with it, the rain doesn't look like it's going to get better anytime soon. Naruto told her while rubbing her back lightly. Kuritsuchi looked up towards Naruto and looked into his eyes. Thank you, she simply told him. They then walked into Naruto's room and he activated some privacy seals he placed in the room earlier. When he did this, the weather outside was considerably duller, but you could still hear it. They walked over to his bed and they both laid down together, with Naruto still having his arms wrapped around her. He started running his hands through her short black hair. She slowly curled up against Naruto, still flinching from the sounds outside. Good night, Kuro-chan, Naruto told her, making her blush from the nickname. Good night, Naruto-kun. She responded, yawning, and fell asleep in Naruto's arms. Naruto smiled softly, seeing her sleep cutely. He soon fell asleep as well, listening to the rain outside. The next morning. Naruto woke up in his bed as the morning rays shined in through his curtains. Naruto then smiled as he remembered yesterday and all the things he did when he got into his new village. His most memorable moment was easily when he made a new friend. He looked down at his chest and saw that said girl was sleeping on his chest like a mattress. Kuritsuchi had a small amount of drool coming out from the side of her mouth, making her look adorable in his opinion. He then brushed the small amount of hair that was in front of her face, making her smile and hugs him, still sleeping. I should probably get her back into her own room before anyone sees us like this. Naruto thought to himself. He then started wiggling himself softly from underneath Kuritsuchi in order not to wake her up. She must have felt him moving because she grumbled in protest and gripped onto him tighter. He just sighed, knowing she must be comfortable due to Kasumi doing the same thing whenever she fell asleep with him in the past. He slowly unwound her arms from around his body. She frowned in return and moaning in protest. He just simply chuckled in response and picked her up bridal style, making sure to not wake her. Kuritsuchi in response just smiled in her sleep and curled into his chest, more trying to get as much of his body heat as possible. He carefully opened the door with his foot and proceeded to walk outside of his room towards Kuritsuchi's room. He reached her room and opened the door and looked inside her room. The room was certainly more furnished than his room. It contained a bed and restroom much like his. The walls were painted a nice teal color. Around the room were more bookcases in her room filled with simple things such as books, scrolls, and ninja tools. He walked over to her bed and placed her down softly, making her whine again. He then saw two stuffed animals near the base of her bed. He picked up the animals and looked at them in amusement. They were both rabbits, the first one was primarily white, with some spots of blue and purple. He saw writing on its foot and saw that its name was Tauka. The second rabbit was mostly black with some places being white. The interesting thing about the second rabbit was that it was wearing an eye patch over its left eye. He looked for a name on the foot of this rabbit and saw the name Kaneki written on it. Tauka and Kaneki, cute names to give stuffed rabbits. Naruto thought to himself. He then walked over and gave Kuretsuchi the rabbits. She instantly grabbed the stuffed animals and slept with them in a tight embrace. Now that's cute, she still sleeps with stuffed animals. Naruto told himself. He then went to her desk and wrote her a note for when she woke up. After finishing the note he started leaving the room. Naruto got to Kuretsuchi's room door and quietly opened it. He then stuck his head out into the hallway to make sure nobody was around. It wouldn't be great if someone saw him come out of a girl's room this early in the morning. He walked out of the room once he felt he couldn't sense anybody. He then looked towards the door to make sure that it closed quietly. He then turned around to be met with the face on Inoki looking at him. He froze looking at the old man before him who had a blank expression on his face. "Good morning Naruto, I would like to take a walk with you and I will be waiting for you by the door," Inoki told Naruto before going downstairs. Naruto just nodded before going into his room to get dressed. He was currently freaking out. It was bad enough that he was caught in Kuretsuchi's room so early in the morning. The situation only got worse due to the strongest person in Iowa and grandfather of said girl to catch him. Naruto then walked out of his room in his all-black suit and walked down the stairs. He saw Inoki standing by the door patiently. As they were walking outside, various people that inhabited the village would bow towards Inoki or greet Naruto if they met him yesterday. The ground was muddy and the air was humid due to all the rain from the night before. By what Naruto could tell they were currently walking towards the Tsuchikage's tower, but were walking through various places such as the food markets to get there. After about 10 minutes of walking they finally arrived at the tower and were currently looking over the top of the village from the top of said tower. Inoki finally looked at Naruto making him gulp before looking back at the village. "I love my village and will do anything in my power to keep it in a state of peace. This is the job that I had taken upon myself when I had become the Tsuchikage." Inoki informed Naruto, who was currently confused as to why he was being told this information. "The only problem about being the leader of the village is that people start treating you differently. This is the problem that Kuretsuchi has to face every day. She is constantly left alone due to me being the Tsuchikage. I'm sure that you have been informed of this yesterday when you became her very first friend," Inoki told Naruto. He finally understood what the old man was trying to say. "I may not show it much, but I care for Kuretsuchi and only want the best for her. There is only so much that I can do for her and the rest is all up to her. When I came home yesterday it was a relief to see her smiling as much as she did around you and her new friends. I want to thank you for doing that and becoming her first friend that she needs," Inoki said with a hint of happiness in his voice. Naruto just stood there and smiled in return before he spoke. "I don't believe anyone should be left alone for stupid reasons such as being related to powerful people. Loneliness isn't the best feeling in the world and I am happy that I had Kasumi to keep me company over the years, unlike Kuro-chan, who had nobody to lean against and was by herself most of the time," Naruto told Inoki. The old man simply gained a small smile on his face as well as raised his eyebrow when he heard the nickname he gave his granddaughter. "Now, as for the matter of you being in Kuretsuchi's room this morning," Inoki started off making Naruto stand as stiff as a board. "I understand that she has a problem when lightning storms come and she probably came to you. I'm glad she can do that with you after such a small amount of time. If I find out that you hurt her, I will show you the power I have that lets me be the Sandaime Tsuchikage," Inoki threatened Naruto. Naruto was still scared, but he still turned to face the old man. "Of course Tsuchikage-sama, I would never hurt Kuro-chan. I will always take care of all my friends to the best of my ability even if I am young, but that just tells me I have a many years to get stronger," Naruto said in return. Inoki looked at the boy's face and saw the amount of determination in the young boy's eyes. It surprised him to see the amount of passion in those azure and violet eyes. "I will hold that to you Naruto, now if you would excuse me I have work to complete today," Inoki told him before he went into the tower and work for the day. Naruto just stood there looking over the village, taking in the view that the tower allowed him to see of the rock village. "I'm glad that Kasumi and I chose to this village. I have no regrets and I never will about our decision," Naruto told himself. He then felt some movement inside his mind and knew that a certain fox was awake. "I believe that we plan to look for my siblings today. I can sense both of them right next to each other in the northern part of the village," Kurama reminded him while yawning. "Alright, let's go meet some fellow Jinchuriki Kurama," Naruto responded to the fox. He looked over the village that was bathed in the morning light from the sun. After a couple of minutes, he then jumped to the top of the tower and landed on a nearby building and started running towards the signatures. Back at the house, Kuretsuchi had barely started to wake up to start doing her morning routines. She opened her eyes expecting to be in her best friend's room, but she found herself in her own room, hugging her two rabbits. She looked at the clock on her nightstand, which was next to her bed, seeing that it read 8:30. Was last night just a dream? She asked herself, a little disappointed. It felt so warm and safe in his arms, she said, and got a little blush before shaking her head. After finishing in the bathroom, she then got dressed. She wore a simple red shirt with a rabbit printed on it and some black shorts. When she started to leave her room, out of the corner of her eye was a note on her dresser. She picked it up and started to read it. Hey Kuro-chan. I hope that you feeling better after last night. I need to do some things today, so I carried you back to your room when I woke up. If you ever need to sleep with me again because of the rain, I won't mind. I'll talk to you guys later tonight. Naruto. After finishing reading the note, Kuretsuchi was immediately happy. So it wasn't a dream, she told herself. With a now much happier mindset than earlier, she then headed downstairs to meet everyone. I need to thank him for last night when he comes back, she said. When she got downstairs, she went into the kitchen and saw that everyone else was already there. Kasumi was making breakfast for everyone, while Aomoi, Kari, Samui, and Yujito were waiting at the dining table. Kasumi, seeing that Kuretsuchi was awake, smiled, but it almost went away when she smelt her. She could smell her brother's scent heavily on her friend, and it confused her. She was going to have to ask about it later. Her sense of smell was heavily enhanced due to being a ghoul, but it wasn't as good as people of the Inyazuka clan. Good morning, Kuretsuchi-chan, I am making some breakfast for everyone, so just sit down and wait until I'm done, Kasumi told her. She nodded in return and proceeded to sit next to everyone else. Kuretsuchi talked with everyone else at the table until Kasumi brought the food onto the table. She had prepared some steamed rice, miso soup, and tamagoyaki. Kasumi placed the food in front of everyone. The smell alone made everyone's mouth water. This looks delicious, Kasumi, thank you, Yujito told her, receiving a nod of thanks from the white-haired girl. Thank you, I need to go wake up Nai-san right now, so I will be back in a second, Kasumi said and started heading towards the room. He's not here right now, Kasumi, he said he had some things he had to finish today and left early. Kuretsuchi told her, and making Kasumi stop and turn around with a confused expression on her face. I was going thank him for helping me with something last night and he left a note, Kuretsuchi told her. Kasumi then extended her senses in the house and couldn't feel her twin. I wonder where Naruto went, but I'm sure that it was somewhat important if he left early, Aomoi said, still looking at the food. I can feel his chakra thanks to the Nibi, he seems to be heading north in the village, Yujito informed them. Maybe if you eat fast enough, kitten, you can catch up to him and claim him as your mate by having hot passionate sea, was all that Matatabi got to say before she was cut off. Shut up, Matatabi. I'm too young for that. Yujito scolded her Bijuu, but now having a blush on her face. Well, there is nothing that we can do about it now, but can we please start eating now? Kari said, and at the same time made her stomach rumble. Everyone chuckled at her, making her sink in her chair from embarrassment. I'm sure that Naruto-kun will tell us later what he was doing, but let's eat for now, Samui told them. They all then sat down at the table and with a quick chorus of "Itadakimasu" began eating the delicious food Kasumi made. Back with Naruto. Naruto was currently jumping from tree to tree on a training field. It seems just like Konoha, each village had specialized training grounds for different situation. After jumping for a couple of more minutes, he landed on a tree and saw two men on the ground looking at each other. Naruto tried suppressing his chakra level down so they won't notice him, but they could probably still feel him. They have more experience than him and they can more than likely sense Kurama. Note to self. Ask them for tips on how to suppress Bijuu chakra. Naruto told himself. The man on the left was an older man that had red hair, mustache and beard. He was shown wearing a large headpiece consisting of a three-pointed crown-like ridge, bearing both his Iwagakure forehead protector, a ring, and a prominent black piece of armor running across his cheeks and the bridge of his nose. He wore a long-sleeved light red shirt and pants, with mesh armor shirt and fitted black suit underneath, along with calf-length sandals. Around his waist he wore a brown sash that held a brown armor-like breastplate with a pouch in the front, a brown back plate on the back that is connected to the front with mesh armor, and armored lapels falling to the sides. On Naruto's right was another man, who was easily one of the tallest men he has ever seen. He is also heavily armored, with what he believed was on the man's back releasing steam. His armor extends all the way to the bottom half of his face, covering it up. Underneath the armor covering the bottom half of his face, he wears a white cloth which also covers both sides of his face and the top of his head. Aside from his red armor, he also wears a red straw hat over the white cloth, and it seems to be composed of the same material of his armor and furnace. He was wearing his Iwagakure forehead protector on a black cloth over his armor. He was also wearing a black eye, with the sleeves seemingly torn off, and black gloves. He also wears what seems to be a bronze-colored ring around his neck which he wears over his red armor. Also, the armor covering his arms and torso is plated. His right hand was currently placed inside his guy. These are the two men Naruto, the man on the left seems to hold the Yanbi. The man on the right seems to be holding the Gobi, Kurama informed him. Yeah, I've seen them before in the bingo book. Rashi of the lava release and Han of the steam. Naruto confirmed in head. Why does Han constantly have steam coming out of his armor? Naruto asked. Each Jinchuriki of the Gobi has to wear a specially made armored suit, while not imperative to their life, it certainly does help. An odd side effect of being sealed with the Gobi is that they begin to produce a large amount of steam from their skin. The steam to them is obviously harmless, but to others it is a mild acid, burning and cutting creatures that the steam comes into contact with. This obviously makes it hard for them to complete little tasks other people can accomplish easily. Kurama explained. THAT sounds like it sucks being sealed with the Gobi, are there any plus sides of being its Jinchuriki? Naruto asked. The user has access to boil release, which is great in both defense and offense. With the steam he can increase his physical attacks depending on the amount of pressure used. Kurama responded. The Yanbi also grants his Jinchuriki the ability to use lava release. He continued. Why haven't I gained any cool abilities like that? Stupid lame fox. Naruto pouted. Ungrateful brat. I enhance your already amazing healing to incredible levels, let you gain negative emotion sensing, and increase your senses. Kurama yelled in rage. I know, I'm just kidding with you Kurama, you're awesome. Now we have to be quiet, they are starting to talk. Naruto told the fox, who just grumbled. On the field. It seems that we have a kid among our audience today. Isn't that right, Han? The Rashi started talking. It seems that we do, but you know how I feel about other people, Rashi. Han replied. Yes, I know that you have a dislike for people, Han, but it's just a gaki. Letting him watch us spar won't be that bad. Rashi responded. I can feel another Biju within the boy. It seems to be the Kyuubi, but it seems weaker for some reason, and I can't say why. A voice responded in Rashi and Han's head. Is that so, Son Goku? Can you feel it as well, Kakuo? Han asked. Yes, but like Son Goku said, it feels weaker than what the Kyuubi should be. She responded. He also seems to be suppressing his chakra. He should know at his level we will more than likely sense him. Rashi said. The boy's chakra also seems to be large for one so small. Interesting. Han said. We can talk to the gaki when we are done with our spar. As usual, no going over one tail. Rashi explained, getting a grunt in return from Han. Please count down for us please Son Goku, Kakuo, Han asked politely. I guess of course. Son Goku and Kakuo responded. 3, 2, 1 begin. The two Biju said at the same time. Rashi brought out some kunai and started to throw them towards his opponent. Han immediately brought out his own kunai, holding it in reverse grip, and started blocking them. One of them landed at his feet and he saw a burning tag on it. He looked back at Rashi and saw that he was holding a hand sign. Hi, Rashi shouted and the kunai at Han's feet exploded. Rashi waited for Han to make a move, knowing that didn't affect him. The dust barely started to yell before his senses kicked in and he jumped out of the way. Boil release. Steaming shuriken, Han yelled. Out of the dust multiple shuriken coated in boiling water came at him. Since he jumped the attack missed him, but when he looked at the tree that took the damage, he could see it quickly corroding into nothing. Boil release. Unrivaled strength, Han said before rushing at Rashi. He immediately started an onslaught of punches aimed towards the face and chest. Rashi could do little but dodge due to the corrosive steam on his fists and legs. Seeing an opportunity, Rashi swept at Han's legs, making him jump up to avoid it. He immediately hit Han in the torso 2 times before round kicking him away from him. Lava release. Lava bullet, Rashi yelled and spat out some lava at Han. Not wanting to be hit, he started to hand seals in retaliation. Boil release. Boiling shot, Han said spitting out boiling water. The two attacks connected coating the field in steam. Taking advantage of the situation, Han started gathering all of the steam around him and did more hand signs. Boil release. Boiling water dragon, he yelled and shot it at Rashi. Even with all of the surrounding steam in his way, he was able to sense Rashi's location with the Gobi's help. The attack connected and Rashi was launched backwards into a tree with his armor heavily damaged. Han built pressure using his suit and launched himself at Rashi. Unrivaled strength. Erupting strong foot, the attack connected, but instead of his opponent being blown backwards he was blown away. He landed a bit away and saw that he had lava coating some parts of his armor. He looks back at Rashi's last position and saw only lava in its place. Lava clone, but where did was all he had to say before he was felt Rashi appear behind him. Lava release. Scorching armored fist, Rashi said with his arm covered in lava. The attack smashed against Han's back, making him fly into a tree groaning in pain. He didn't have enough time to recuperate himself before he saw Rashi attacking him again. Lava release. Scorching stream rock technique, Rashi yelled. Multiple molten rocks came rushing at him, forcing him to get up and dive out of the way. He finally stood up and started doing hand signs and Rashi copying him. Water release. Giant exploding water shockwave, Han said before spitting out a large amount of water towards Rashi. Lava release. Molten river, Rashi said in return. He as well spit out a large amount of lava from his mouth to negate the water coming towards him. The two attacks once again created steam in the area. Making one last attempt to take Rashi down, Han created more pressure in his suit and launched himself. Rashi had been still trying to recuperate from his last jutsu that he couldn't defend himself properly. Boil release. Erupting propulsion fist, Han yelled. Rashi not being able to block in time took an extremely strong punch to his chest. He was immediately launched to the other side of the field due to the force of the attack. He stood up in pain from the attack and sighed in defeat. I give Han, you win the match. Rashi told him, holding his chest and trying to dull the pain. He then looked over his armor and saw that there were corroded places wherever Han hit him. I'm going to have to get this fixed. Rashi told himself. Han looked at his armor and thought the exact same thing due to the burned places. Han turned towards the trees where he felt the child's signature. Come on down here boy. He yelled gaining Naruto's attention. Naruto then jumped down from the perch that he had on the tree. He landed in front of the two men and could only be amazed at what they could do. Even if it was a simple spar it really showed him the potential that all Jinchuriki possessed to become strong. He was brought out of his musing when he noticed the two men were looking at him, expecting him to say something to them. I'm sorry, my name is Naruto Amaya and my sister and I just moved to the village. Naruto said. That explains a lot. My name is Rashi Gaki and this is my friend Han. Rashi said. Han just looked at Naruto and nodded his head towards him. Nice to meet you. Han said in a simple greeting. Now we have a little question to ask you, do you know your tenant you're holding? Rashi asked pointing at Naruto's stomach. Yeah, I learned about him about 4 years ago. I could also tell that you guys hold one as well and wanted to meet you. Naruto explained. I believe that it would better for us to talk somewhere more secluded. Touch my fist and we can talk in our mindscape. Han said. The two men extending his fist towards Naruto for him to do the same. The blonde then nodded, made his own fist and touched the two other Jinchuriki's hands before he was pulled inside himself. In the mindscape. When Naruto opened his eyes he saw sitting on top of Kurama's head. They were inside an orange room that gave off a comfortable feeling. In front of him he was able to see that Han and Rashi were on their own Bijuu's head. Rashi was sitting on a red-furred and green-skinned monkey, behind it were 4 tails swinging behind it, lazily showing it to be the Yambi. Han was standing on top of what he could only describe as a white horse dolphin that had horns. Behind it were 5 tails, showing that it was the Gobi. Well would you look at that, Kurama had gone and gotten him sealed inside a human. Something he said would never happen to him. The Yambi laughed. Kurama only growled at the stupid monkey that was in front of him. You best shut your mouth Son Goku or I will show you why I was always the strongest out of us. Kurama warned his sibling. The monkey simply stopped laughing, but you could still see the large smirk he held on his face. Can you two please stop fighting with each other already? This always happens whenever we meet. Kakuo asked politely. Her brothers can be really annoying, but at least it isn't as bad as when Shukaku argues with Kurama. You can't say anything Kakuo, you and Matatabi always fight when you meet. Kurama teased towards his sister. That's because Matatabi has no self-control over herself and it annoys me immensely. She has got to be one of the biggest perverts in our family. It is unfitting of a woman and she doesn't care. Kakuo yelled in defense, but they were right, she was being a hypocrite. It wasn't her fault that her sister was a major pervert. Well you should be happy that you are going to meet her soon again. Naruto brought Matatabi's Jinchuriki along with him and is now staying in the village. Kurama told his sister who only lowered her head in defeat. She really did not want to deal with Matatabi. Yay me, Kakuo responded. We also wanted to talk about that, it seems that you already have ninja training. If you just recently arrived then where did you come from before? Han asked. He then saw the hate in Naruto's eyes immediately, this was going to take a while. Naruto then told them about what had happened in his life in the village in Konoha. Going all the way from Kasumi and his neglect and finding 2 new mothers. The 4 years of training that he and his sister went through in order to become stronger. His meeting with Yujito and her group and lastly joining his new village Iowa. Rashi and Han were certainly not thrilled when they were listening to Naruto's story. They had been told that the Yondaime Hokage was a man that loved his family and village more than anything. It seems that was a lie if he was willing to leave 2 children to take care of themselves. The same could be said for Kakuo and Son Goku as well. They were livid when they were told the reason that Naruto and Kasumi were ignored. Just because Minato felt it was more important to take care of the two unstable Jinchuriki children. This was the reason that they loathed humanity, they were used for other people's self-interest, and it usually affected other because of it. Well, that clears up a lot of things. It also explains why the Yondaime has been acting so weird for the past couple of years. He was trying to cover up that his two children left the village due to his neglectance. It wouldn't look good for the village or for him, so he's trying to keep it under wraps. Rashi explained. You poor child, it must have been horrible being by yourself. I'm glad that you and your sister found a new family and friends. Kakuo told Naruto sympathetically. Naruto only nodded his head, he wouldn't know what would have happened if he didn't have his sister and mothers to help him along the way. So that's why Kurama's chakra felt so different, it was inside Naruto and Narumi. Are you going to take it back in the future? Son Goku asked. Yup, when I find a good enough opportunity to gain Kurama's chakra back I will do it. Naruto told him. We welcome you to the village of Iwagakure Naruto, and I wish that you enjoy the village. Han told him. Thank you Han, I will try and bring along Yujito-chan along with me next time, so that you can meet her as well. Naruto said in return. I really am not looking forward to meeting her again. Kakuo said, making her brothers laugh. The air started to distort around them before Naruto felt they were going to back into the real world. Outside of Mindscape. When Naruto opened his eyes again he saw that it was getting really dark outside. Man, we must have been in the Mindscape all day if it's already almost nighttime. Naruto told himself. Indeed, we have been talking ever since noon and it's a little bit after 7 o'clock. Kakuo said in his head, surprising him. Han and Rashi chuckled at the boy when he heard Kakuo pop in his head. When a Jinchuriki makes a mental connection with another then they can talk to each other mentally within a certain distance between one another. Rashi explained. Naruto nodded his head and thought of how useful it would be in the future. Oh okay, well that's useful, I'll tell you all later. Kasumi is going to be mad if I don't get home soon. He told them before jumping towards Inoki's house. What an interesting boy, wouldn't you agree, Rashi? Han asked his friend. Rashi just kept watching Naruto as he went back towards the village. He certainly is, Han. Rashi responded. Back at the house. The girls of the household were all sitting in the backyard of their home on a blanket, staring at the night sky that was holding the stars. It was peaceful for them, with a slight breeze and cool temperature. They could just stay out there all night long looking at the stars. Kasumi was looking at Kuretsuchi, wondering what her brother had helped her with. She knew that it wasn't any of her business, but she just couldn't help herself. It had been bothering her immensely and she just couldn't figure out why. Maybe it had to do with Kuretsuchi smelling like her brother. Hey Kuretsuchi-chan, what did my brother help with yesterday? You really wanted to find him this morning, but he had already left the house. Kasumi asked the girl in question. When asked, Kuretsuchi immediately started to blush, making all the girls raise their eyebrows at her. It was nothing, he just helped me with something small, and it helped a lot. She quickly said. Well, it couldn't have been that small if you don't want to tell us about it. The blush on your face is also getting bigger, making you look funny. Carrie said, smirking. Kuretsuchi just got even more flustered before turning her head away from them. They immediately started laughing at the poor girl. Fine, I'll tell you. Just stop laughing at me, it's embarrassing enough as it is. They mumbled out. The other girls immediately settled down and started looking at her intently. I have always been scared of rainstorms. I'm sure that you all heard the one from last night and it was big. She told them. They just started chuckling at her in amusement. They soon stopped when they saw that she was being serious. I'm sorry, that was uncool of us, you can continue. Samui told her. I guess that I would always go to my dad whenever I was scared and I would feel better. Since he wasn't here, I went to the first friend that I had made yesterday. Naruto let me sleep with him and I haven't slept that good in a long time. He just made all of the loud sounds go away when I laid next to him and really wanted to thank him for doing that for me. Even though he didn't have to. She explained to them. They all just sat there and listened to what she wanted to thank Naruto about. They shouldn't be surprised though, Naruto has this way of making you feel better without even trying. Well, it was nice of him, Naruto-kun is a good person and I'm glad that he did that for you. Yujito said, smiling at her. Naruto-nai really is a nice person, isn't he? Kasumi said. She received a nod in return from everyone. While she was happy for Kuretsuchi, she was a little scared at the same time. Her brother only let her sleep with him in the past and nobody else. What if he got bored with her and starting being with everyone else except her? What if Ani-san stops caring about me one day? She thought to herself. She knew her brother would always love her and stay with her, but that thought will always scare her. She then saw the target of her thoughts land in the backyard with them from the corner of her eye. Hello ladies. Naruto greeted them. All the girls just smiled at him and did a small little wave of their hands towards them. Where have you been all day, huh? Carrie asked him. Naruto then told them of how he met the two other Jinchuriki within the village, Han and Rashi. He talked to them about the spar he had witnessed and his opinions of the two men. "So that where you went the whole day, Naruto? We got a little worried when you left out of the blue this morning," Samui told him. "Yeah, sorry about that, I really wanted to get that out of the way as soon as possible. I should have told you guys ahead of time," he replied back. Everyone's stomach rumbled, making them all laugh. "I'm guessing nobody had dinner yet?" he asked, making everyone shake their head in the negative. But that said, everyone started to go inside in order to help make dinner. Naruto saw that Kuretsuchi was still standing on the roof looking at the stars, staring off into space. He then walked up next to her and touched her shoulder, making her jump in surprise. "Hey, everyone's going inside to make dinner, you coming?" he asked her. She looked at him and saw that he was smiling at her, resulting in her smiling as well. "You sorry, I was looking at the stars," she told him. Naruto then started to go back into the house when he felt Kuretsuchi grab his hand. She wasn't looking at him, but he could tell that she was embarrassed due to her tensed posture and faint blush. I just wanted to thank you again, or last night again," she finally told him after a bit. "I told you on the note that it was completely fine, and if you ever need to sleep with me again, it's fine," he said. She just nodded before heading back inside to start making dinner with everyone else. Later that night, Naruto was on his bed thinking about how well things went today. The meeting of two Jinchuriki was very successful in his opinion. He still had to bring Yujito along with him next time he goes to meet Rashi and Han again. It was about midnight and he started to feel his sister's emotions. She was a little upset and scared at the same time. What's wrong with her? He asked himself. Kasumi and they have always been able to sense when the other is upset. So whenever one of them had a problem, they would go talk to each other. The only weird thing was that Kasumi didn't want to seem to talk to him this time. So if she wasn't going to come talk to him, he was going to go talk to her. He then got off from his bed and opened his room door and went into the hallway. It was dead quiet due to everyone in the house sleeping. He walked down the hallway until he stood outside of his sister's room. He knocked on the door before he opened it and walked inside. Kasumi was sitting on her bed thinking about something. She was so much in thought she didn't even sense her brother walk into the room yet. "Kasumi-chan, what's wrong?" Naruto asked her. He walked up to her bed before sitting next to her on the bed. Kasumi looked at her brother before laying her head on him. "Ani-san, you aren't ever going to leave me, right?" she asked. He just looked at his twin in curiosity. "Why are you saying that, Kasumi?" he asked her. He grabbed her chin with hand and stared into his hand and saw that she had some tears in her eyes. "I guess you getting along with everyone makes me scared. That one day you will be with them more and forget about me," she told him. He simply wrapped his arms around her and she put her head on his shoulder. She wouldn't know what to do if her brother ever left her. After a couple of minutes he pulled back and saw that the tears in her eyes were gone. He then grabbed her hand and interlaced their fingers together. "Kasumi, do you remember the promise that I told you all those years ago?" he asked her. When Naruto said this to her, a memory appeared that she remembered clearly. "I completely forgot about that day," she said to herself. She just closed her eyes and remembered that day where he promised to always stay with her. Flashback. Those eyes kept staring down at her. She couldn't understand, why did they always look at her like that? With anger and loathing. She did nothing to deserve the stares she was receiving. She was a good girl, her brother always said so. So why did the people always look at her like they didn't care for her or she was just a problem to them? Then she remembered the situation that she was in. She started looking around herself in desperation, her brother wasn't by her side. The hand that always held his was cold. So very cold. She had been distracted by a traveling merchant who was selling cute animals. She saw the rabbits and went to look at them in awe. When she got back into her senses, she couldn't find her brother wherever she looked. "Ani-chan," she said to herself. They were going to play at the park today. She was so excited she started dragging her brother immediately after breakfast. She should have known better than to try and rush through the business and food market. Now, she was lost and alone without a brother. "Ani-chan." Tears started to appear in her eyes, she began to rub at them stubbornly. She would not cry, never in front of all these mean people. But it was so hard, all she wanted was to hide from all the looks that everyone was giving her and crawl underneath the safety of her bed. "Where did you go, Ani-chan?" Her brother had always been by her side for as long as she could remember. Her parents did care for them and look at her the same way as all these people. They didn't care about her and looked at her like a nuisance in their eyes. He was the best brother in the whole entire world. He always made her smile and did everything within his power to make sure that she was happy. Playing with her when she asked, holding her hand, brushing her hair. She couldn't think of a moment when she wasn't beside a twin. But now, alone and scared, she tried calling for the only person that cared for her in this village. Her brother was kind and strong. She barely noticed that he had been distracting her from the stares that the people would give them, keeping her attention on something else whenever they were outside. He was always her protector, her warmth. And she couldn't find him. She cried, sliding downwards against a wall, hugging herself, trying to recreate the warmth her brother brought her. Some concerned looks were thrown her way, but the majority of the people kept walking without looking back. They didn't feel like wasting time to deal with someone like her. Kasumi. She looked up in shock and happiness when she saw her brother running towards her. She cried out as he came within arm's reach, her hand stretched towards him immediately. He then hugged her tightly, whispering soothing words that made her feel better. He ignored the stares he was receiving against his back, he glared away the curious people that started to get close to them. She hugged him with all her might, making the grief go away. She felt warm in his arms, she felt safe once again. Protected and loved. "I'm sorry Kasumi," he whispered to her. She shook her head that was resting on his shoulder. "I was scared Oni-chan. I thought you left me." "Never again Kasumi." He promised, taking her hand in his and interlacing their fingers. "I will never leave you." Flashback end. After all of these years he kept his promise and never left her side. She felt stupid for forgetting about that day and thinking that a brother would leave her side. Kasumi felt Naruto then start to lay her down on her bed. The sleep was starting to catch up to her, making the soft bed seem so inviting. When she thought he was going to leave the room he laid right next to her. "I think it would be better if I slept with you tonight, wouldn't you agree as well?" He asked her with a smile. She just nodded her head and wrapped her arms around him. "I love you Oni-chan, good night," she whispered to him. She felt her heart speed up when speaking these words. She always said it to him when they were younger, so why was she acting like this? "I really need to ask Ka-chan," she told herself. "I love you too Kasumi-chan, good night," he whispered back. His heart was also beating faster much like his sister's. It still annoyed him that he couldn't figure it out. "It feels like when talk to the other girls," he told himself. Curse his mothers for not telling him what the feeling was. He just had to figure it out later because he was tired from today's activities. He just pulled his sister closer to his chest and heard her snore. He soon succumbed to the calm atmosphere and fell asleep as well. The two twins just laid there on the bed, warming each other as they slept the night away. Jiraiya was well known for being one of Konohagakure's legendary sannin. He was part of the same team as the legendary medic Tsunade Senju and missing Nin Orochimaru. The team had gone through many things in their lives in order to become as famous as they were, but the person that gave them their name was Hanzo the Salamander. He was known as the Toad Sage because of his special affinity for toads, as well as holding the toad summoning contract. Along with being one of the strongest ninja that Konoha has ever produced. He was also the sensei for the current Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. Famed as a hermit and a pervert of stupendous skill, Jiraiya traveled the world in search of knowledge that would help his friends, the various novels he wrote, and the world in its entirety. Most of his time was either spent time as a master spy for his home village or gathering material for his famed series Icha Icha. The pervert novel that has been the bane of many women's existence ever since the first book of the series had been published. Jiraiya was a tall man with waist-length spiky white hair usually tied back into a ponytail, with two shoulder-length bangs that framed both sides of his face. He also had red lines that ran down from his eyes and wore a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil. Jiraiya wore a green short shirt kimono and matching pants, under which he wore mesh armor that showed out of the sleeves and legs of his outfit. His outfit was completed with hand guards, a simple black belt, wooden sandals, a red haori with two simple yellow circles on each side, and a scroll on his back. After about 2 years he was finally returning to the village hidden in the leaves. He had been away taking away care of his spy network, as well as his next book in the Icha Icha series. He had received a message from his student that asked if he could come home at his earliest convenience. He wasn't able to respond immediately due to the fact he was trying to gain some information on a new mercenary group that recently popped up. While they didn't seem to be a problem at the moment, it would always be good to keep tabs on the group just in case. Currently Jiraiya was in the Hokage Tower, standing over his student whom he had just punched in the jaw. "What the hell were you thinking?" he yelled at his student. Minato could only look away and rub the jaw that was already starting to bruise. "I can understand if you forgot a child's birthday, but completely forgetting them on a daily basis. There is no excuse for the decisions that you and your wife made," he yelled at his student. Kushina was just sitting over to the side and let her tears falling from her eyes while her body shook. She couldn't look at the person she considered her father figure due to the hurtful truth he was saying. "And you Kushina. This is also your fault at the same time. Both you and Minato were orphans, so you should know what it feels like to not have a parent's love, so why would you do the same thing to your child?" he directed towards her. "What do you think that Mito or Tsunade would think of you if they heard of this?" he started yelling at her. Kushina just increased the amount of shaking and she started sobbing now. Tsunade and him had both become their parental figures for their life. Jiraiya had believed that he taught the two of them well, but apparently not if they could forget their first two children, causing the twins to run away. While he may have never spent much time with Naruto and Kasumi, he did care for them nonetheless. He was also slightly blaming himself because he had also spent most of his time with Minato and Kushina's other two kids. Jiraiya could only growl as he looked at his student on the floor. The once vibrant and spiky blonde hair seemed to slightly droop and lose its luster and bright color. His skin had started to lose its tan and started to slightly pale, his eyes seemed to lose its color as well, becoming a dull blue. Kushina wasn't in that all much of better shape, she seemed to have lost some weight from staying inside being inactive. Her vibrant red hair wasn't as beautiful as it normally was. She had tear stains on her face due to the crying she had been doing since he arrived. I couldn't just send a missing report for my eldest children, sensei. Do you know how bad it would be if someone asked them why they ran away and they told them the reason why they did? Minato told him. In return he received another punch in the face due to his explanation. So you're telling me that you care more about the effects of what would happen to you if someone found out, rather than the fact that your family is a wreck right now, Jiraiya yelled at him. He couldn't believe what he was hearing from his student right now. Now I need to go find your children, because you both don't care enough to do it yourselves. He told them before walking towards the office door. I just want my babies home, Jiraiya, can you bring them home for me? He heard Kushina ask him, sobbing into her hands. He only kept walking towards the door when he heard Kushina ask him a question. The anger and disappointment he felt with them wouldn't allow him to look at the two of them. When he reached the door, he opened the door that stood there before breathing in. I am severely disappointed in the two of you and expected better from you. He told them before he walked out and closed the door. He needed to find his godchildren. With all of the commotion that was currently happening, nobody noticed the Anbu with the initials NA hiding in the shadows of the room. The person just as easily slipped out of the room due to the husband and wife being distracted. The Wagakure. It had been a month since the night that Naruto had his sister Kasumi. Since that time she seemed to be slightly clingier and hung around him more often. He had slept with Kuretsuchi a couple more times, but it was more for sleeping purposes. It was a lot easier for both of them to sleep together than when they were separate. Another thing that he was luckily able to accomplish was taking Yujito to go meet Han and Rashi. Everything had been going great until they all went into a collective mindscape so that everyone could talk easier. He was happy that Son Goku had given them a large boulder to hide behind. He still couldn't believe that the nice and sweet Kakuo could be that scary when she was pissed off at Matatabi. Right now we could find Naruto and everyone else walking in the town towards the Ninja Academy. Today was officially the first day that all of them would start learning to become ninjas of their village. All of them were excited for their first day of class, well, most of them. Kuretsuchi had received a letter from her dad about a week ago that he wouldn't be able to take her to the academy for her first day. Something had gone wrong in his current mission, causing the mission to be extended longer than what was planned. She had been disappointed ever since she had read that letter because he promised to take her on her first day. All of them were walking next to each other talking, but she wasn't as active in the conversation as everyone else, which they noticed. I'm sure it's going to be fine, Kuretsuchi-chan, things like this happen, and he did say he was sorry. Kasumi told her. Kuretsuchi turned her head to look toward her friend, she gave her a small smile, but released a sad sigh after a bit. I know her said that, but it's still disappointing that he won't be able to make it. I was really looking forward to him coming and meeting you guys. She told them. There will always be other times that we will be able to meet him, I'm sure that he is just as disappointed as you are right now. Samui said to her. You're right, I guess it's nothing to worry about for now, so let's just get going. She told all of them. After she said that, they all finally started heading their way towards the academy. They arrived after about 10 minutes of walking and arrived in front of the academy. It seemed like other people were excited to start the first day due to the fact there were other families that arrived before them. The academy was large and was made up of several buildings that were all connected to one another. As usual, the buildings are all made up of rock like the rest of the village. An added bonus feature is the various trees that are planted around the school to make it more visually appealing. Ani-chan, doesn't it look exactly like Konoha's academy? Kasumi asked her brother. Yes, it actually does, the only difference that I can see is that there are more rocks and less trees. He responded back. But that said, they all began to walk up the school, passing all of the other families along the way. As they were walking there, they began to get a little annoyed from people moving out of their way because of Kuretsuchi. Man, this is starting to get annoying, I don't understand how you can deal with being avoided for most of your life. Amoy said. The girl in question just shrugged her shoulders and releases a sigh. I honestly don't know, I guess in my mind if I ignored them then it wouldn't hurt as much to be avoided, but that didn't work out all that much. She told them. Everyone just nodded their heads and walked inside the doors to the academy. Instead of being rock like they thought, the inside of the building was actually made of wood. After finding the correct room that all entered it and looked around inside. The classroom was large and had a large ceiling which helped accommodate everything inside of it. In the front of the classroom there was a blackboard, resting in front of that was a podium for the teacher to use. The desks for the student to use were made in different rows that went upwards so that the teacher could see all of the students. After their quick overview of the classroom the friends all sat next to one another. We still have a while until class starts, wake me up when the teacher gets here. Amoy asked them before putting his head down on the desk for a quick nap. Lazy ass, Carrie said towards her friends before looking towards everyone else. What do you think that we are going to be doing today? She asked them. It shouldn't be anything special today, it is orientation day so they will probably get everything situated to start the year. Yujito told her. But that said they all began to talk among themselves for the rest of the time. Around 20 minutes later the teacher finally came into the classroom and the classroom full of people went quiet. He walked over to the podium and cleared his throat before he started talking. Good morning everyone, my name is Arata Fujikawa. I will be one of the many teachers you will have throughout your time here. The teacher told them. I will start doing attendance, so raise your hands and say here when I call your name. After he said this he started going down his list of names until he got everyone on the list. Okay, since everybody is here let's begin class. Who can tell me what chakra is? The teacher asked the class. After school. Who the hell gives homework on the first day of class? Both Kuritsuchi and Carrie groaned to nobody. The rest of their friends just chuckled at the simple that they were complaining about. Their homework was to simple write a summary of the basics of chakra, which everyone else in the class finished except the two girls due to them complaining to having work. If you hadn't been complaining in class the whole time on how it was boring, then you wouldn't have to worry about it right now. Samui told them. In response the two girls only grumbled even more for no reason. Well I don't feel like doing work right now, so I'm going to go for a walk. Does anybody want to come with me? Carrie asked them. Everyone except Naruto shook their head in the negative, saying they had other things to do. Well I don't have anything to do so I guess I'll go with you. Naruto told her. With everything settled everyone parted to do various things. Naruto and Carrie walked around the village talking around random things and looking at the different things various vendors were selling. I don't think that I asked you yet, but what do you think of living in Iowa? Naruto asked Carrie. A light smile crawled onto her face before she turned her head to the side to talk back to him. I guess you could say I'm slightly homesick, but living here is certainly better than dealing with all the junk we had to on a daily basis, she told him. They just began to walk in silence again until Carrie suddenly stopped and looked inside a store window. Naruto stopped and looked inside the window as well and looked at what she was staring towards. It was a brand new katana that was on display in a weapons shop. It was 25 inches long, a long white grip that had red diamond patterns on the sides and a squared guard. He turned towards Carrie who still had her eyes planted on the katana, admiration in her eyes for the weapon before her. It looked so pretty, Naruto heard her say. He chuckled to himself and she didn't seem to hear him, as if she was in her own little world. You really like swords don't you Carrie? Naruto asked her. Carrie was broken out of her trance and turned towards her friend, rubbing the back of her head with an abashed expression on her face. Sorry, I don't know why, but I have always wanted to get a sword and learn how to fight with it. She told Naruto looking back at the sword. Naruto just continued to smile at the girl's enthusiasm with the weapon before gaining a thoughtful expression. Carrie looked at him weird before she saw him nod and look back at her. I may not be the best in the art of Kenjutsu, being only around Chunin rank with it. If you want, I can teach you if you want how to use a sword. He told her. Carrie couldn't speak for a bit due to the surprised request, but after a couple of seconds her face became excited and hopeful. Really you'll really teach me how to use a sword? She asked him, her whole form shaking with excitement. Of course, you're my friend, and if one of the things you want to do is to learn Kenjutsu I would be glad to help you. He told her before he was grabbed into a tight hug. Even with his increased amazing resistance to damage, it was beginning to hurt from how much she was squeezing him. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Carrie told him jumping up and down in her arms. He only laughed in response and hugged her back while everyone passing them smiled and laughed from how the two were acting. Carrie eventually calmed down when she saw everyone looking at her and having Naruto hold her in public. She quickly let go of the hug, grabbed onto Naruto's hand and started running away from all the people, which caused even more people to chuckle at the cute kid's actions. She slowed down eventually and tried to slow down her fast beating heart. She turned towards her friend and saw that he was still slightly laughing at what happened. I seriously hope that you won't tell anyone how I acted. She told him with a sharpness in her eyes. I promise that I won't, but I wish that you would act like that more sometimes, it's cute and very refreshing. He told her and received a hit on the head. Stupid, she told him with a blush on her face before they started walking home together because it was getting late. Naruto looked down to his hand and saw that she was still holding it in her own. He really didn't feel like saying anything for two reasons. 1. He didn't feel like getting bonked on the head again, and 2. It felt really nice holding her hand. After they had finally gotten home, Naruto and Kasumi along with their mothers were sitting on top of Inoki's house. It was a daily ritual for them as a family to sit down at least once a week and talk to one another about random things. Kasumi had been teaching Yujiro and Kuretsuchi how to cook and they were finishing up dinner. "So how were our baby's first day in the academy?" Narine, also known as Kami, asked her two children. They simply shrugged and continued to look at all the people that were walking beneath them. "It was okay, it was only the first day." Kasumi responded back. "What made it go from an exciting day this morning to just okay?" Their other mother Nanis the Shinigami asked them. "Just the usual stuff I guess, getting to know everyone in class and going over a small amount of history about Iwa and chakra. Stuff like that." Naruto responded back. Nanis only nodded along, not trying to make it seem amazing. Even she thought that was pretty boring. Although, there were quite a good amount of girls that were staring at you, Naru-chan. "I'm pretty sure that you're going to have your very own fangirls very soon," Narine told her son. Naruto just groaned in response to his mother's teasing. Although, she was right, there were many girls that kept staring at him throughout class. This also caused Kasumi, Kuretsuchi, Samui, Kari and Yujiro to be more protective of him. "None of those stupid bimbos can have Ani-chan. I won't let them, no matter how hard they try," she said to her mothers, causing the two women to laugh. "You're so possessive of your brother Kasumi-chan. Maybe you should just kiss him in front of them to make them back off," Nana suggested with a devious smirk on her face. Kasumi and Naruto just blushed heavily, causing the two women to laugh even more at their children's expense. After laughing at their children's expense, the family just sat on the rooftop in silence. Naruto then saw a homeless person off in the distance getting ignored and looked at weird by everyone that walked past them. With his ears he could also pick up the yelling of two people, more than likely a couple, yelling at each other over something. "Ah-chan, how come you and Ka-san can't just make the world better with a wave of a hand? You are the gods of this world, so why can't you make it so that everyone can live in harmony? A world where there would have to be no fighting, everyone would love each other, nobody would have to lie and be fair," Naruto asked his mom. Kasumi had also been wondering about this as well and sent a curious glance at her mothers. Narine and Nanis looked at their two children, who looked at them questioningly and only could sigh in return. "Trust me, Sachi, we have tried to fix problems that the world possess, but there's only so much that we can do. I am Kami, the goddess of life and creation, a title that should give me all the power in the world, but it doesn't," Narine told Naruto, who looked even more confused. "What my sister means, Naruto, is that she can only control certain things inside of the domain that which she was given when we were first created. I am the Shinigami, the goddess of death, and this only gives me a certain range of certain things I can interfere with. Even if I wanted to, I can't simply wave my hand and millions will die in the blink of an eye. I can only tempt people with the thought of death and control all of the souls when a person dies," Nanis tried to explain to her child. "Is that why you are mainly only seen when people summon you through the use of the Shikifujin? You aren't able to actively interact with anybody except when they are the summoned?" Kasumi asked her mother. Nanis just nodded her head to her daughter but also fumed at the thought of the blasted seal. "Yes, and since my sister is Kami, she can only do certain things. Such as control the weather, watch over all the animal life and seasons. There are other things as well, but they can only be used for minor things such as those examples," Nanis continued to explain. "So pretty much all you and Ka-chan have been doing all this time is small things ever since life started?" Naruto asked Nanis, who hummed in response. "But to be honest, we haven't even had to do anything for thousands of years. The world and my job with taking care of the dead have been taking care of themselves," Nana said. "Ah-chan, haven't you ever tried to make something that would help the world?" Kasumi asked her mother. Naruto and Kasumi then watched as both of their mothers slightly ball up their hands. "We had tried once before, a long time ago, when the world didn't even have the ability to utilize chakra. The world was nothing but an endless battleground wherever you looked," Narine said. "We had decided to intervene into world affairs to make a better world for all people to live in. We decided to choose a girl who wanted nothing more in the world to live in harmony. She hated how the world was, only seeking to make a difference," Nanis continued. "She prayed to us and asked for a way to give her strength to make her dream come true. We believed that with as kind heart as hers nothing would go wrong. We never looked towards the darkness in her heart due to all the pain she received during the wars," Nana said. "Who was this lady you talking about, Ka-san, Ka-chan?" Kasumi asked her two mothers, who looked at her. "Beguiled Satsuki," Nanis and Narine said together with an edge to their voices. When Naruto heard this name he immediately felt Kurama tense and start growling at the very name. "Do you know her, Kurama?" Naruto asked his partner. "Just listen, kid, I will talk to you later about this, but let's just say that me, my brothers and sister don't like her." Kurama growled out before going silent. "We created the Shinju tree, a plant that held the power to give someone chakra. Kagaya then ate the fruit that the plant created and became the first mortal in existence to use chakra." Narine told her children, who nodded their heads in understanding. She accomplished her dream and became the most powerful person in existence and single-handedly ended the wars. Due to her deed she then was worshipped as the rabbit goddess. Nanis told her children. Then what happened? Something had to happen if the world is still like this. Naruto told his mother, who in return poked him in the forehead. "We weren't finished explaining, Sachi, now be quiet and let us finish." Narine told him. He agreed and rubbed the spot on his head where he was poked. Kagaya then eventually settled down amongst other humans and eventually got pregnant with twin sons. She named her two children Hagoromo and Hamura. One of her sons is well known through legend by different name though, one that both of you were taught in your lessons. Nanis told them.